Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Ms. Malhotra, we're live.
All right, Susie, give me 1 minute. Let me just, okay. Are we live?
Yes, we are.
live.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, everyone. I call to order this Board of Education meeting today, Monday, September 8th. Can we have a motion to convene an executive session?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education convene in executive session for the purpose of discussing the paraeducators' contract negotiations involving the superintendent, Dr. Susie De Silva, her leadership team, and intern Katie Risk.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second? John, you'll have to call them out.
Do we have a second? Selena, seconds. All approve? Motion's unanimous.
Okay, Ms. Malhotra? We're ready.
Okay. Susie, you can hear me?
Yes, we can. You ready to start the meeting?
Okay, perfect. Good evening, everyone. I call to order this Board of Education meeting again I'm going to call it again to order for Monday, September 8th. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hey, everyone. I am not there, as you can see. I'm in Scotland, and because of the time difference, it's almost after midnight. So as the vice chair, Miss Amy Casey is not there, our board secretary, Mr. Paradiso, will take over this meeting for now. I will stay on this meeting as long as I can so that I can participate, but if it's very late, I will probably switch my camera off. So I hope you can forgive me for that. I'm sorry again, I can't be there in person. I'm tending to some family stuff here. But the first item on our agenda is public comment. Mr. Paradiso, all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Malhotra. We will now move to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak will have 3 minutes after stating their name and street. If a speaker exceeds that time, I will let them know and ask them to wrap up. We ask that all comments remain respectful and civil towards each other, towards our administrative team, and towards the board. This board values and relies on public engagement with our work, and we appreciate everyone who takes the time to share their views, whether here or in person or by email. All right, the first name we have on the list is Kelsey Rollinson.
My name is Kelsey Rollinson, and I live at 113 Westwood. Is it on? Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent, and Ridgefield Public School leadership team that are here. Thank you for your continued commitment to engaging with parents and stakeholders, especially on the smartphone issue in schools, especially the high school. We appreciate the positive steps RPS has taken, and I believe we all agree there is still more work to be done. Tonight, I want to speak about smartphone use at the Ridgefield High School and why we urge you to take bold action now. American teenagers receive an average of 250 notifications a day, and the impact on attention, academic performance, and mental health is undeniable. Across the country, school districts are recognizing the harm of unrestricted phone access outside the classroom, and they're responding. What they're finding is powerful. A lot of school districts, including in Virginia, a high school senior said the phone ban helped her realize that phones had become an excuse to be isolated. She added, people actually talk to each other at lunch now. It's very adorable. She said they're hanging out almost like out of a movie. Can you imagine kids thinking hanging out together is something you'd see in a movie? In Wilton, which has now a bell-to-bell phone policy, visitors were absolutely blown away, quotes, seeing students connecting face-to-face again. One school psychologist noted a decrease in student anxiety, fewer peer conflicts, and improved classroom focus. Another reported that students are spending more time in class and needing less mental health support, meaning they're leaving classes less to go get mental support. And as one therapist put it plainly, we're not banning phones, we're trying to give kids their attention spans back. And here's what's most striking. I have not found one school across the country that I have researched that has implemented a bell-to-bell ban that has regretted it, that has gone back. No one, in fact, everyone says the consistent feedback is that the benefits far outweigh the initial bumps or challenges. And I know it's difficult. This is not easy to do, but it is necessary. As adults, we can do better. We know how smartphones affect the developing brain, altering emotional regulation, desensitizing the brain's reward system, and increasing anxiety, sleep issues, and impulsivity. Yes, we must provide alternative communication methods during emergencies, and thankfully we can. Governor Lamont recently signed a bill allowing Connecticut schools to give teachers panic buttons for immediate alerts to staff and police. We do not need teenagers texting emergency services or their parents, causing confusion and sometimes rumors, which exacerbate these situations. We must accommodate students who rely on phones for assistive technology. No one is trying to take away that from any student who needs it. We want to support those students wholeheartedly. Some argue that teens need to learn responsible phone use, and yes, that's true, but who's supposed to enforce that during the school day? Is that yet another burden we place on teachers? There are plenty of hours outside of school for parents to guide responsible phone use, but during school, let's create an environment where face-to-face interaction and development and interpersonal skills are treated just as important as academics. It's important for teens to know they can go 6 hours without their phones, to be fully present, connected, and engaged in life around them. Thank you.
The next speaker listed is Jackie Britt Friedman.
Hi again, everyone. Okay. Jackie Britt Friedman, 24 Split Level Road. As you're well aware, teachers have found strong evidence that greater screen use is linked to more mental health difficulties, including depression and anxiety. It was found that teenagers who spent over 3 hours of social media a day were twice as likely to face negative mental health outcomes. As I believe you know, when students have a free period in their schedule at RHS, they can spend 3 hours of the 7-hour school day on their phone. While some parents might say that the solution is for parents who have a problem with this to not let their kids bring phones to school, those who understand the nature of adolescence and the powerful social pressures teens are navigating know that this is also not something many parents generally want for their children when everyone else is on their phones. A community problem must have a community response, and I'm confident you agree that it's a community problem. Last year, the decision was made to take phones out of students' hands in the classroom at RHS. From my understanding, this is because it was clear that phones are a distraction and students were not capable of regulating their use given the addictive technology. It's also my understanding that teachers have seen positive results. So I'm curious about the rationale to not enforce tighter controls during non-academic times in school, which are ripe with opportunities for social emotional growth. Are phones not as distracting and have less of a draw in non-academic environments? Is it because social emotional wellness and a sense of connectedness, which are impacted by teen phone use, are not as important as academics? Are those the values of the district? I don't know how you feel, but it makes me sad to think about all of the lost moments of connection as students are looking down at their phones, immersed in worlds that are heightening their anxiety, offering an instantaneous fix, and filling the void so that they have more limited opportunities to feel bored or learn how to navigate difficult situations. I lament about the experiences students are missing out on during school when they're pulled into using this technology. Several months ago, an expert you enlisted recommended unequivocally to ban phones through 12th grade in order to promote mental wellness at RHS, a district focus given the youth mental health crisis. I, another psychologist trained in clinical child and school psychology, am strongly advocating for this, along with many other mental health professionals. I appreciate the conversation I had with the leadership team and the district's intention to do more around this issue, including seeking feedback. I do wonder what your school mental health experts say, given their experiences with RHS students. I'd like to note that adolescents will always push back about restrictions and try to find other ways around them, even if the restrictions protect them from harm. That does not mean you don't restrict or prohibit the behaviors. RHS continues to prohibit vaping in school, even though some upper-class students will go to their cars to vape. The work is around educating, being thoughtful about implementation of the rules, and acting to protect young people. I'm urging you to act.
Reading the testimony of Mo and down here? Okay, should I start over from the top? My name is Eileen Cara Burnett. I live at 58 Split Level. I am both a teacher and a mom. Today I am reading the testimony of Mo Kennedy, the Executive Director of National Association of School Resources Officer, NASRO. The National Association of School Resource Officers is dedicated to making schools and children safer by providing the highest quality training to school-based law enforcement officers. NASRO is extremely supportive of a statewide bell-to-bell phone and social media free policy for grades K through 12. We do not support an exception for emergencies. We know that schools, students, and staff are safer when students' cell phones and personal devices are not present during the school day. And for this reason, if students are allowed to bring personal devices to school, they should be securely locked away and inaccessible to the student from the first bell to the last bell of the school day. In an emergency situation that requires a lockdown, there are some procedures that students need to follow. Students need to be focused on the adults giving instructions. During this critical time, students need to listen to the teacher and/or first responders for guidance. Messaging or calling their parents who are not in the building could distract students from other life-saving instructions. If in hiding, students need to remain quiet. Noise and/or lights from students' phones could alert an assailant to the location where students are hiding. Number 3, phone lines need to remain open for communication between staff and first responders. If hundreds of students are calling their parents, then the communication channels may be overwhelmed and impede necessary communication with the first responders. Clear access to the school allows for faster response times by first responders. If parents are alerted by students and rush to the school, the extra traffic could potentially block access routes for emergency response vehicles. The fewer people approaching the building, the more secure the surroundings. And number 6, schools are equipped to manage emergency communication with first responders and with parents. Misinformation can quickly spread over social media. For the best possible outcome, it is essential for students not to be on their phones during a lockdown. In addition to phones placing students in more danger during emergency situations, they also contribute to a less safe school environment in general. A significant portion of discipline referrals result from students having access to phones and social media during the school day. These concerns include privacy violations, social media drama, cyberbullying, and fights, all of which are significantly reduced in schools that require students to lock up their phones for the entirety of the school day. If students have access at any point during the day, lunch or passing periods, for example, then these infractions still occur. Therefore, it is prudent that legislation be passed so that all students can have a safe and distraction-free learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sasha Hogan.
Hello, Sasha Hogan, 63 Benson Road. I'm a mom of 3. I have 2 11-year-olds in 6th grade, and I have a 9-year-old in 3rd grade. I also happen to be a licensed clinical psychologist in my work life, but I'm here as a parent today. I would like my children to have a place to go in school where they are not in the presence of smartphones. I don't want my child to be inadvertently exposed to unwanted content on another person's device. I don't want my child looking over the shoulder of a peer in the lunchroom who's doom scrolling for 20 minutes on an app that I've not approved for my child. I don't want my child to worry about having to be recorded during an embarrassing moment in the lunchroom. Will they encounter these situations when hanging out with friends during non-school time? Of course. Do they deserve for school to be a place where they are protected from this? Absolutely. I realize this is not a black and white issue, and I continue to firmly believe that the research is clear. The benefits of a phone-free learning and social environment outweigh the costs. Children with ADHD are especially susceptible to technology overuse. Their dopamine systems are already dysregulated. I could spend time listing and summarizing the peer-reviewed randomized controlled trials. It's not just 1 or 2 people talking about this, but it would take a long time because the research is abundant. What this means in terms of policy is not for me to decide. I do appreciate the continued conversation. I hope it continues to be a more open conversation. I'm curious where the board individually and as a whole stands on this issue. That's kind of a mystery to me. I strongly urge the board when considering future smartphone policy to make safety your #1 priority and consider making school a phone-free learning and social environment. Thank you.
Next up is Katarina Amberlaj. Sorry.
Hi. Hello, and thank you for giving me a chance to speak. This is my first time, so I'm a little nervous. My name is
I'm sorry.
Katrine.
Thank you.
Katrine Umbraladze, and I live on 21 Powder Maker Drive. I urge you to support the school-wide ban on cell phones during school hours. There are many research-backed reasons this policy benefits students, as my fellow Ridgefield residents have already shared. I would like to focus on its impact on the teachers. Right now, we ask the teachers to manage academics, student well-being, and classroom dynamics. And they're already overloaded with all the things that we ask them to do and how much they do for our children and for the administration. But on top of that, we also expect them to individually police the cell phone use inside their own classrooms. This creates a constant conflict and adds to their already heavy workload. A school-wide policy takes off that burden off of the teachers. It creates consistency across classrooms and normalizes the idea that phones should not be out during the day. And we all know the herd community, we all have the same rules. And yes, there will be people who will sneak their phones in, but again, similar to vaping and other many reasons, many things we ban, it's something that we should take a stance on. School-wide ban is simpler, it is fairer, and a much more effective approach that creates consistency and a healthier learning environment for both staff and the children. And this is just one account of a friend who is a teacher. This spoke to me a lot. My friend is a high school teacher. For the year 2025, they banned cell phone use during the school hours by using the Yonder pouches. One thing that really struck out to her is that she often volunteers for the prom. And during the prom that was prior year, everyone had their phones out, either taking selfies, checking social, texting, etc. There were just phones were everywhere during the prom. This is not during school. This is during their, but right after the band and a year after that, the prom that they had after that, the friend barely saw any phones out during prom. This was not banned at all. They were allowed to use them, but kids were just dancing. They were just interacting, and the phones were allowed. They would take pictures, but even that, they had the photo booth, and they even had more fun with that than theirs. So she just saw the kids be way more present, even outside of the band time. And it was such just an enormous change in the kids, and she just really wanted to share that with me, and I want to share that with you. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Next up is Emily Fernandez.
Did you need us to turn the camera?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I need that camera. Okay. Sorry.
I will move it back.
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry, we're just
And that was the, just be careful, that's why the chair's there.
Hi, good afternoon, evening, everybody. My name is Emily Fernandez. I'm at 679 Ridgeberry Road. How many people in this room support phone-free schools through 12? Raise your hand. How about on the board? I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not, but I know you can't engage with us. That was the overwhelming majority of people in this room. And I know that there's opposition, but this is a democracy. We have over 500 people in Ridgefield who signed a petition to support this. Where's the 500 plus people supporting phones in school? Who wants the phones in school and why? The overwhelming majority of people don't want it, and it's because of evidence-based literature, peer-reviewed data, the Academy of Pediatrics, every single peer-reviewed study ever done on this. So, tonight there were a lot of issues raised, and I'm going to try to weave in some things here. I want us to talk about the crisis that we face. School shootings are the leading cause of death of children under 18 in this country. Mental health plays a role in school shootings. There is a mental health crisis among students. Technology is a contributing cause. In school, kids may sit next to each other, but when they're on devices, they are alone in a room full of people. Technology has enabled us to live beside and not with each other. But school can and should be a place where there are no screens, where children can be free for just 6 hours a day. So can you give them that freedom, please? There is no evidence that phones in school support children academically or socially. There is likewise no evidence that Chromebooks for elementary school children prove beneficial in any way, shape, or form, and in fact, it's the opposite. This RPS curriculum should be based on evidence-based methodologies and not simply, we had it during COVID, so let's just continue the policy. COVID is over. We need to rely on the evidence for our children. We owe it to them, and you all have the power to do this. We spend approximately $20,000 per elementary school per year times 6 elementary schools is $120,000 on elementary school Chromebooks, which are given without any evidentiary basis whatsoever that shows that helps the children. Let's take that money and allocate those resources to something that is beneficial. And I would suggest having an armed security resource officer at every single school. Let's be very clear. Well, let me digress for a second. At a minimum, kids off screens interact with each other more, so that one kid that's struggling may make a connection that prevents them from doing the worst thing ever. Alternatively, increased connection, even in elementary, may allow the kids that are not struggling to identify the kid that is struggling. Technology is not the only culprit, and I want to be very clear about this with respect to school shootings, but it is a contributing factor, and it's something that you can control, and you can do it now. So please, I ask you, K through 12 should be phone free.
Ms. Fernandez, please wrap it up. Thank you.
Remove Chromebooks from elementary schools, reallocate tech funds to armed security resource officers. Let our children live not beside, but with each other. The community, the teachers, the students, we're all watching. Thank you.
Next up, we have Michelle Christ.
Okay, sorry, guess it wasn't off. Hi, Michelle Christ, 9 Longview Drive. I am also here to speak about cell phones, but as the child who was by herself in the lunchroom at RHS for most of the time, who was usually reading a book or got a library pass to go spend time by myself, I'm here actually to support cell phone access during lunch, free time, passing periods. And usually when I show up here, it's to talk about something disability related, so I actually really do want to start with that. If you look at the disability community and the research on cell phone bans and how this impacts not only caregivers and parents of children with disabilities, but individuals with disabilities themselves within the school system, there is a real negative effect to a cell phone ban. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is that we're still not really even fully using all of the applicable and potential assistive technology interventions that exist because of the negative impact and negative perception around cell phones. Children have to defend their use of cell phone use to subs, to paras, to people who are not familiar with their individual IEPs. So when a cell phone ban is put in place across the school environment, the 20 to 30% of the school population is then being put into a defensive position where they have to explain what their accommodation is, why they have the accommodation, and continually defend when they're already functioning from a piece where they need an accommodation in order to access the environment. So even though you're not taking away that accommodation, you're putting an additional burden onto that population. Secondly, children sometimes use phones because they are a natural part of our environments. I'm using it right now as an assistive device to track my time as I speak to all of you, because it is something that is normal, accepted, and necessary in the world that we live in today. When you remove phones, you remove give that opportunity for children to naturally accommodate themselves. So then if they do not have an IEP or a 504 specifying that accommodation, the burden is shifted to the parent of the child with a disability to get a diagnosis, to come to the school, to request a meeting. It takes additional time from teachers and parents in order to put in place something that was happening already naturally within the environment, which is a goal in disability accommodations, is to get children to generalize their accommodations and to use them in the natural environment in the ways that make them normal, right? That make it typical in their environment. So I would really encourage you to take that perspective, and I'll send you all an article from Disability Scoop explaining this negative impact. It also others those children, it makes them stand out, and we shouldn't be segregating the disability population in that way because of a cell phone ban that, quite honestly, the children aren't asking for. It's already in place in the educational environment in the classroom, and that is providing kids the opportunity to access the systems that provide them comfort, that provide them the opportunity to interact as digital citizens. The entire social paradigm has shifted. And I just had
Please wrap
5
it up,
kids
Ms.
going
Christ. Thank
to
you.
volleyball in my car. They were on their phones, they were talking, they got out of my car, and I thought, my gosh, it's so quiet. This dystopian zombie-fied universe does not exist in RPS, and I do not see a need for an overall cell phone ban.
Thank you. We've gone through the list of names of folks who signed up, but if anyone might have come a little later or have decided they would like to speak, they can come forward and state their name and address, and they would have 3 minutes.
This on? Can I ask for an extra 3 seconds for
Yes.
reasonable accommodation? Thank you. So I'm here today to talk about the town as a whole. I'm very concerned that there's so many different things going on in town that we're losing sight of what the end result is going to be. So, for example, I was at the safety building presentation on Saturday, and we're proposing $78 million for a safety building. We're also dedicated $4 million to the A School and transition program. We also have a $150 million possible school improvement plan up to, and then also the previous bonding of the Ridgefield school roofs, the limiting litigation of private property on a specific road, the sped increases, and I think that as a whole, we have to come together as partners, like true partners, as a community, and meet with the Board of Selectmen, POA, Board of Finance on a regular basis to say, what's this all gonna be to the taxpayer? What's the end result? Like, what's the final number? Because I think right now there's so many different things happening right now, and I can't keep track of them. And I think that at the meeting Saturday, lots of people were concerned with the same thing. So I would urge you to please get with your partners and make that widely known, because nobody likes surprises on their tax bills or any costs to affect their financial situations at home. And then lastly, I want to just say one thing about the cell phones. I had 2 kids that have graduated RPS schools, and personally, I wish I always didn't have schools at the time, because they can't get their phones out of their hands right now. So it's disturbing, because I find at times that I can't get my phone out of my hand. So we're just all guilty. But if we could somehow figure out a way to make that transition from no phones to phones to no phones easier, because I think it's tough for all of us, including adults. So thank you very much. Deborah Francis Cheney, 72 Spire Road. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the floor? Please state your name and address.
I'll just press the button.
Pulling up what I need to say. Hi, I'm Roseanne Nagel. I'm here on behalf of Ridgefield Residents for Safer Schools. I'm also a first grade mom, and I also run a grief-sensitive school initiative and grief-sensitive workplace initiative through my financial planning practice. Mental health is a big deal in this community, not just here, but everywhere else. Back in 2022, when we had the shooting in Uvalde, I led the march through town for Connecticut Against Gun I'm a little nervous, so I don't speak very well to groups. So firstly, I just want to thank Dr. Silva, Joss Aben, for sharing the new and safety and security site. I did not know about it until I reached out to you personally. So I think that one of the things that I would like to see is that the parents of children know that that is there for them to understand what the protocols actually are. I think that's a big deal, as a lot of people feel like that they're in the dark. One of our parents came to me and said I had a third grader ask me after last year they went through one of the drills for a school shooting, and the third grader went to her parent and said, "Mommy, what if I'm in the bathroom and I hear a school shooter? What do I do? I don't even know." And the mom said, "I don't know either." And I think that's horrible, that if you cannot tell the parents what to tell their children at night, that's really bad communication between the Board of Education and the people that are sitting here in front of you today. Back in 2022, when we met with Dr. De Silva, Director Zabin, Chief Crace, and First Selectman Marconi, we asked for professional security assessments. We asked for stronger doors, cameras, clear communication protocols, and community safety forums. The good news is that those security assessments were completed in 2022, and I want to thank you for that. It does show that there is a need, that there is a care. That we're grateful for the work that's been done. The gap is that parents have seen the results, that other Connecticut districts have been more transparent. For example, Hartford publicly disclosed $4.3 million in investments, including bulletproof resistant doors, upgraded cameras, access control systems that directly communicate to their police departments. Statewide, more than $66 million in school security grants have gone to 185 schools with public accountability. Ridgefield deserves the same level of transparency and follow-through. So moving forward, we're asking for a few things. One, holding a public forum, if possible. I don't know exactly how it works. I'm sure I'm close on time. So maybe we can meet together to review where we stand. Two is sharing a more clear communication for emergency protocols, which you have done in the new site, but nobody knows about it, so that's a problem. Three, expanding the focus to well-being supports, such as a grief-sensitive initiative for mental health, which backs up to this phone initiative for mental health. I do think that it can fit into the budget, because I hear that there is some space in the budget for something, but we don't know what. And that brings me lastly to fundraising. Parents are prepared to fundraise.
Thank you. Please wrap up your comment.
Yes. Parents are prepared to fundraise to help pay for safety and wellness initiatives if we're given a clear roadmap. Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments from the floor? Seeing none, thank you very much to everyone who made a comment this evening. We will have a second public comment session at the end of our meeting. And I encourage anyone who would like to make additional comments to stick around and listen to everything else. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. I'm just going to speak for one moment, and then I'm going to let you take over the rest of the agenda. Everyone, again, thank you so much. I want to thank first of all, I hope everybody had an amazing start of the school year. Thank you to all. I hope the teachers are doing well. I hope all the kids are doing well. And I also want to take a quick moment to acknowledge all the hard work this team did, especially Dr. De Silva and her whole team, when we had the slight hiccup in summer due to the technology issues. So it was tough, but we got through it. So thank you to everyone for that. I also want to thank all the parents who spoke with us tonight and those who have written to the board about cell phones. I want to reiterate that your voices matter, and want everyone to know that every letter, every statement, every concern of yours is taken seriously. We recognize how deeply you care for the kids and for your schools and to the learning environment, and your commitment to the schools makes it so much stronger. To make sure we're all working on the same understanding, Dr. De Silva and her team will share a presentation at the next Board of Ed meeting to talk about what is really happening in the schools. This will include an overview of current practices in the schools, the feedback we've received from teachers, other important insights, and of course, the fiscal considerations that may be. So for the 29th, I want the community and the board to know Dr. Silva and her team will be presenting to us something on this topic. And the reason we're doing this is that gives us, both the board and the community, a clear picture exactly what is happening in real time, so that we can all get engaged in an informed, thoughtful discussion about next steps together. That was this part. And just very quickly about CAPE, I know that we have had multiple CAPE webinars. You know, there was one summer retreat. There are multiple CAPE webinars coming up. I would encourage board members to sign up for that. For any people, for any prospective board members who are looking to join in November, CAPE also has another webinar that is coming up. You want to join the board. What does that mean? So you can join that. That's in September. I believe it's end of September. Just go to the CAPE's website and you can sign up for that. I think that's about it. And I will be there for the next meeting. And again, thank you so much for all your patience, for letting me Zoom in. I know this was an important meeting, and I wanted to make sure that the community and the board knew that I was listening and the board was listening, and we're all here in partnership together. John, all yours.
Thank you very much, Tina. And we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Paradiso, and welcome back, everyone. We haven't had the opportunity to just take a moment to thank this team at this table, all of our leadership, members of our leadership team, certainly the Board of Education for the opening days. We had an exciting convocation, which we believe is incredibly important when we welcome back our faculty, our seasoned faculty, and certainly our new faculty. Everyone at this table, and again across our schools, really worked hard to make sure the day felt celebratory and meaningful in terms of their professional learning. We welcomed a big group of new teachers, as we do every summer. We love having them here and welcoming them into each and every one of our schools in our community, where our first select person comes and speaks on the community's behalf, and of course, our Board of Education members are there as well. The opening of school has gone very well. I don't want to knock on wood, but despite a very small number, when I say small number of a few emails around buses, generally speaking, things went very, very well with transportation. So a big thanks to our bus drivers. My colleagues and I hopped on those buses at the start of the school year, and ironically did find a second grader with a smartwatch. But besides that, and Dr. Hanaway thinking that someone was trying to trick her, truth be told, our bus drivers know most, if not all, of our students' names, unless they're in kindergarten. And even those students, they knew their names. They knew their puppies' names. They knew their dogs' names, their moms and dads. It is really very unique here to see that happening. They know what's happening in their lives. So really just a big congratulations to the bus drivers and Billy Gramajo. Because that really has not been the experience that I think some families have had. So I think we've worked out some of the kinks, and while there's always a few at the start of the year, generally speaking, that has gone really well. Open house has already begun. The high school kicked us off last week. I think it was Thursday night around 6 p.m. So that was a good start, and we have elementary and middle school happening over the next couple weeks. We've begun our yearly walkthroughs with Parks and Rec. So for those of you in the community that may not know, we have a trifecta in terms of our partnerships. We have the Board of Ed, we have the town, and we have Parks and Rec, who works on our campuses, the outside of our buildings, and then our buildings within is the Board of Ed's responsibility. So we do walkthroughs each year to see where we have some strengths and, of course, some challenges. And soon enough, we'll be talking about those resources and how we're working through making sure that our campuses are the best that they can be. Again, they're shared facilities, not only with the schools, but as some of you know, outside sports that happen all the time. Well, in fact, outside sports for students and student athletes, the youth, and certainly even our more seasoned members of our community. As Ms. Malholtra shared, we will be inviting Dr. Greenwood back to the Board of Education on September 29th. The good thing he knows, because he's sitting right over there, to discuss electronic devices at the high school, its use, how things have gone, and where we can go from here. I'd like to remind the community, it was actually brought up tonight, about the resources that you have available. I encourage families as much as possible to read that Friday RPS news. That's where you're going to find information like, hey, we have a new security site. We have this going on, that going on. Please take advantage of it. I know it can be long, but skip to the good parts, wherever those are for you, and please take a moment to look at those. And also, We have district websites that are, our district website is filled with other resources as well, whether that's a parent-facing site for curriculum, instruction, our past Board of Ed committee meetings, all of them, curriculum, strategic planning, et cetera. So please take the time. You can listen to it in your car. We have a great podcast. Dr. DeSantis back there hosts it. We have lots of different members that join us. Again, you can get an update on a variety of topics that you might be interested in, so certainly worth listening to. We have 2 big facility presentations coming up in October, where we did have a guest today talk about the town partnerships, where we'll invite our town partners to come in and listen to what's happening on the facility side. One presentation will be about the high school auditorium, and hopefully hearing about some goals that we have for the future there. And the second one connected to the master plan, which is around capacity and utilization of our schools. So that's part of the master plan where we're breaking it into small parts. So that is it for me for right now. Again, big thanks to our teachers and staff who have really made, every single one of them, made our schools function as well as they have. We've had a great start. We're very fortunate.
Thank you, Dr. De Silva. Now reports from committee chairs. Sean?
We had a riveting budget and finance committee meeting, all 20 minutes of it. We'll be going through some of the output of that, the ice rink contract and the sports fees later in this meeting.
Thank you. Were there any other committees or liaison roles?
The Strategic Planning Committee met a few weeks ago. We received updates on the A School project, the roofing projects over the summer, the master plan that's in progress, as well as the auditoriums at the high school and at Veterans Park. So I would encourage anyone who wants to learn more about that to watch that recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we'll now move to the approval of the minutes of the June 9th and August 25th meetings. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from their meeting held on June 9th, 2025. Do I have a second? Sean seconded. Does anybody have any amendments or notes to the, or changes to the minutes? Okay, by a show of hands, who approves those minutes? June 9th? The vote is unanimous. Moving on to the next motion, I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from their meeting held on August 25th, 2025. Do I have a second? Selena, thank you. Does anybody have any changes or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you approve the minutes. Unanimous approval. Thank you. We'll move now to reports from our representatives. The first is the Ridgefield High School student representative.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Jake Greenwood. I'm the principal of the high school, and for the first student representative meeting every year, I like to come up with our student body president, who I have beside me is Camille Wyatt. Camille's been with us in the student government for 4 years, so I'll let her introduce herself, but I'm just here to for solidarity. But after this, I'll move back a little bit. So if you need anything, let me know. So you can hit that little button there, and then you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Camille Wyatt, and I'm the student body president at RHS. And I was also the MC for Convocation back in August. And like Dr. Greenwood said, this is my fourth year doing student government. I served as the class of 2026 president for 3 years. Apart from that, I'm involved with our Youth Against Cancer Society, and I run cross country and track. And I'm very excited to be here tonight and update you guys about the recent activities at RHS. Overall, during the first 2 weeks of school, the energy in the building has been awesome. Students are settling into their routines, classes are rolling, and we're all excited for all that is ahead this year. We started off the first week of school in style with our annual Tropical Tourist Fun Friday. Students wore their best flower print shorts and board shorts to school, and we handed out Lays and popsicles at lunch. Newcomers orientation took place a few weeks ago. We had around 15 student volunteers give tours to our new students, as well as we held a parent panel to alleviate any stress that comes along with moving to a new school district. We then welcomed our new freshman class on August 26th at freshman orientation, which was a huge success. I personally remember walking in on the first day of my freshman year, being so worried about getting lost, but I left feeling so excited thanks to the student volunteers. This year, we had another amazing group of student volunteers with over 75 volunteers leading the new students on tours around the school, answering questions and just helping them get comfortable at RHS. This Friday, we are looking forward to our freshman dance. It's one of the first big events of the year and a great way to welcome the new freshman class. Myself, along with the rest of student government, has been working hard on planning this night, and we're so excited to come together and enjoy the night. On the topic of our new freshman class, elections are running today and tomorrow to elect our freshman class council, and we're all so excited to see who our new leaders will be. Rewinding back to last Thursday, Thursday was a busy night at RHS. Senior parent night was a success. The counseling department walked parents through the upcoming college application process and answered any questions parents had. Right after that, we had open house where parents got the opportunity to meet their student teachers and get to know them better. In addition, college representative visits have begun this week. We have 9 colleges coming this week from all over the East Coast to share information about their school and application process with our juniors and seniors. In sports, the fall season is off to a great start. The boys golf team won twice this week to become 6-0 for the season. The girls swim and dive team, who are reigning FCIAC and state champions, start off their season with a win. Both boys and girls soccer had a busy opening week, with the boys being 2-1 and the girls finishing 3-0. Girls volleyball and field hockey are both 1-1 after some hard-fought games this week on the road. And then this week, boys and girls cross country start their season at their first meet at Wilton on Tuesday, and football has their first official game on the road on Friday at Platt. NHS induction is taking place on September 19th, and our club fair is also coming up in early October. The fair is a great opportunity for all students to see the over 40 clubs offered at RHS, all the way from the Heritage Club to robotics to our awesome Tiger TV. The club fair is one of my favorite and the coolest events because the hallways are lined with dozens of tables with poster boards promoting different clubs, and you can really see how many options there are. And that's all I have tonight for our RHS update. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Welcome.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the NEAR representative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Ellen Foley. I'm the president of NEAR, and I'm here to share the first update of the new school year on behalf of the Ridgefield teachers. I always think I can read without them, but I can't. I keep trying. Although the school year ended in June, our educators' work never stops. While many took well-earned and much-deserved time to rest, they also continued their professional journeys throughout the summer, supporting students and preparing for the school year ahead. Our teachers stay engaged in so many ways. Many educators worked in summer learning programs, providing vital academic support and enrichment to students. Teachers participated in workshops and courses to strengthen their expertise and stay current with best practices. We have teachers that are coaches, and those coaches began working with student athletes in early August to prepare for the fall season, and several advisors accompanied students to national competitions such as FBLA and Ed Rising. Teachers devoted time to designing lessons and creating engaging classroom experiences to welcome our students back. They joined planning and placement team meetings and hosted orientations to ensure smooth transitions for incoming students. This level of commitment, well beyond the traditional school calendar, shows the professionalism and dedication of Ridgefield's educators and reflects the values we share as a teaching community. This year brings the implementation of our new teacher contract. It's very nice to not be negotiating right now. I'm glad we got that done. One important addition is regularly scheduled meetings between special education teachers and service providers with members of special services staff in central office. We're grateful for this opportunity to engage in meaningful and ongoing dialogue throughout the year. These meetings will help us better balance caseloads, refine service delivery, ensuring that student needs are met while also supporting teacher capacity. It's yet another way Ridgefield fosters a culture of trust, collaboration, and mutual respect. As we begin this new school year, I'd also like to remind families that your teachers are your first partners in your child's education. As students settle into new classrooms and routines, you may have questions, insights, or concerns. So if so, please start by reaching out directly to your child's classroom teacher. Our teachers are not only subject area experts, but they're also getting to know each student as a learner, and they are best positioned to provide day-to-day support. While social media could be an easy place to turn to, it can't replace the knowledgeable and committed professionals in our schools. Our educators welcome direct communication and look forward to working alongside with families to support every student's success. And as Dr. De Silva said, we have so many social media resources for RPS. So pop in a podcast, go to the website. There's so much information there, and it's all available. And if you have questions, there's always someone to ask. We're truly excited about the year ahead and the opportunities it holds for our teachers, RPS staff, and most especially our students. I want to thank the Board of Education, Central Office, and our community for the continued partnership and support. So we look forward to a wonderful school year together, and thank you.
Next, we have a report from our PTA representative.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Mary Salgado, and along with Lorraine Catalano, we are excited to serve as this year's Council PTA presidents. The district theme of Better Together perfectly encapsulates the goal of both the Council and individual PTAs. It's a true reflection of how collaboration and community spirit are making a difference right from the beginning of the school year. Over the past 2 weeks, we've seen this firsthand. Individual PTAs have been working to host back-to-school luncheons, support open houses providing snacks and lunches for teachers and parents, and assist teachers with startup funds or mini grants. Many schools are also busy planning their fall activities, including fun runs, Clash of Colors at ERMS, and other exciting events that promote community and student engagement. Lorraine and I will be attending this year's Board of Ed meetings to provide a quick glimpse into all the wonderful activities and initiatives happening across district PTAs. When Lorraine was invited to speak at convocation, she reflected on what Better Together truly means for the PTA. And it really resonated with me. It's not just a catchy phrase, it's about recognizing that the PTA is in parents over here and teachers over there. We are one community united by our shared commitment to the same goal, giving all our children the best year possible. We're all working for the same kid in the same schools, driven by the same hope. The best way to achieve this is by working better together. Thank you, and looking forward to a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to discussion possible action items, I just wanted to make sure for purposes of our minutes to be perfectly clear. We have 7 members present, so when I say unanimous, it was a unanimous vote on our minutes of the 7 members who were present, both here in person and remotely. Thank you. Sorry for that confusion. All right. Our first possible action item and discussion is the approval of a Ridgebury Elementary School gift.
Ms. Scalise, principal of Ridgebury Elementary, who I almost missed once again. She was hiding right behind. There you go, Mary. You ready to announce your gift?
Yes, good evening. Thanks so much for having me. We are looking for approval for a gift from our PTA to host a mountain workshop for our grade 5 students. It's an enrichment program that fosters collaboration, problem solving, teamwork. It's a day-long outdoor event where students are engaged in group activities. We've done it in the past. It's been a great experience for our students, so we're hoping to continue.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. Just 2 questions. The first one is this happen at the school, or you go?
It does. It's on site. So we, the same lower field where we have our field day is where we hold the workshop in different parts.
Okay. My
outdoor
other
space.
question is probably more for Dr. De Silva. Will other 5th graders have a similar experience across the other elementary schools?
So not necessarily. So it really does depend on, there's room within their curriculum that allows for some variation, right? So at this point, at this time of the year, when they plan this activity, this particular school is going to have to make shifts during that moment in time. There are other activities that other schools have. There's not a big window for these. This is why we monitor them. So it's not like one school has 10 activities and one school has 1. But generally speaking, there may be an activity or 2 that is unique to each elementary school and sometimes each grade level. So what we just look for is that there's not a balance that looks like this, Ms. Moore, but that it's, you know, there's some diversity and some uniqueness for each elementary school, but not exact.
So just to clarify then, so this particular one is unique to Ridgebury?
Correct, but we've
Okay.
seen mountain workshops happen in other schools at different
Okay.
times, so it may not have happened right now,
But
may
it
come a
has
little bit
happened.
later in the year. The PTAs run their fundraisers in different ways at each school, and again,
Okay.
that autonomy, there's some room for it. We just want to make sure that the balance isn't far off.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I move that the Board of Education accept with gratitude and appreciation a gift of $3,150 from the Ridgebury Elementary PTA to be used for an enrichment team building program for grade 5 students. Do I have a second? I see Ms. Bell seconds. And if you approve, please raise your hand and say aye. Tina?
Yes, John.
All right, that is 7-4, all present, unanimous, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
to the Board of
Mary.
Education and to our PTA for all their fundraising efforts and planning this enrichment with
Enjoy.
our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item for discussion is the approval of para-educator contract. And Dr. De Silva, how would you like to handle this? Will we have a point of discussion, or should we just make the motion?
You could just make a motion, the discussions happen in executive session.
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education approve the collective bargaining agreement presented on September 8th, 2025 between the Ridgefield Board of Education and the UPSEU Para-Educators Union, Ridgefield BOE Para-Educators. Local 424, Unit 64, for the period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. Do I have a second? Ms. Moore, seconds. Call for a vote. Does everybody approve? Say aye.
Yes, John.
That's 7 approve. That's unanimous for present. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item for discussion is the approval of the 2026 to 27 school calendar, second read and vote.
So same here, there isn't any discussion unless the board has any questions. As we noted in the memo, there are a couple of minor additions. We just wanted structurally for the calendar to be noted, which is the new teacher orientation and the para-educator professional learning, and then just some context around Juneteenth.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll make the motion. I move that the Board of Education approve the 2026 to 27 RPS school calendar as presented on September 8th, 2025. Do I have a second? Ms. Moore? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Yes, John.
That's all 7 present, unanimous. The motion passes. Okay, the next item for discussion is the ice rink contract.
Okay, I'll actually turn this one over to Mr. McAvoy, who led the budget meeting this week alongside with Jill Brown, who couldn't be here tonight, but we did have Dane Street available as well at the budget meeting. And really, this is pretty straightforward in that there is a policy, the Board of Ed Policy 3320, that allows for a waiver of the competitive quote/bidding process based on certain reasons within the policy, which are outlined, they were outlined both in our meeting and certainly within the memo. So Sean, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, if you have some, want to do a deeper dive, we did go over this during our budget and finance meeting. The contract lapsed in June, so this had to happen over the summer to get things in place for the school year, which is what the waiver is about. And this isn't unique. We've done this before. I've been through the last negotiation, and my ask of Dane was, good, let's move forward with it. But I want to have that competitive matrix that you did last time refreshed, and that's what you see on the second page of the memo there from Dane. Obviously, we want to have a rink that is not a half an hour away. The rates are competitive. They're giving us access to a dedicated locker room for the teams, which is fairly unique at a decent rate. And we've had a good working relationship. This is a 3-year contract. The rates are noted for the duration of that 3-year term. We've had a 5-year contract before, so if things are bad, we can cut the cord within that, after that 3-year period instead of 5. Any questions about that?
Hi, thank you. And I watched the meeting. I didn't mean to say hi. I don't know why I said that.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you I watched the meeting as well, and I
Yes.
appreciate the conversation. So this is really about voting about the waiver. It's not about the language of the contract or
actually-
anything like that.
Correct. It's
Correct?
actually, you don't have to vote on the waiver either. So
Oh,
we're
I'm
just,
sorry.
it's really just a
Item
point.
of information.
It's an item
Oh.
of information.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And given the fact that it is a process that we've gone through in the past, we just felt like it was good form to make sure that the Board of Ed knew that we went through the waiver process, and we just wanted the transparency to come through the budget committee.
Okay.
And my ask
Understood.
was to refresh that matrix, because I wanted to see the competitive nature of the contract. I wanted
Okay.
to make sure that we're within, parameters that made sense.
Okay.
And to my mind, we are.
Okay, excellent. If I did have a question about the contract, would I come to you privately or?
So that's typically operational, but if there's something in the contract that's concerning to you, share it with me, and I'll share it with Jill. And if there's something there that's of concern, we can address it.
Okay, thank you.
And I did ask that at the end of this, maybe we find a way to extend the contract for 3 months on a temporary basis to have it come before the board beforehand. So that was an ask.
Any other questions from the board? Sean, I was just, if we are going to refresh it and revisit in the future, I want to make sure that we have protections in any agreement if for some reason that property changes hands, that we don't find ourselves in a lurch and the team doesn't have anywhere to play.
Understood.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll move on to our next possible action item. It's a discussion of sports fees.
Okay, so
want me to do that one too?
similarly, yes, we're going to turn it over to Mr. McAvoy because we don't want him to feel like that big budget meeting that lasted a whole 20 minutes
It
was for naught.
riveting, though. It was awesome.
That's true. Same scenario here.
Yeah.
Mr. Street wasn't available
Jill is out,
tonight. Jill
Dane's
is
out.
out.
Yep.
And we're really speaking about admission fees at home games, which I think, generally speaking, people should be very happy that this is going to happen.
So yeah,
But I'll
this
turn
is
it over to you.
admission at home games for boys soccer, girls soccer, and field hockey. And you can see in the memo that the grand total of everything we took in for this was about $6,900. We're literally paying somebody $2,700 or so to collect that money. So the net is just under $3,700 for the entire year. My ask of Dane is, if we remove this nominal fee, will attendance go up? Because I would love to have an athlete be able to have unlimited amounts of friends there at their game to support them, or family members, what have you. And it has been an impediment before. However nominal this fee is, and teams coming in from out of town, or you're charging a fee for this game, they didn't know it either, because we're one of the only schools that was charging this for these sports. So the juice didn't seem to be worth the squeeze on this one. And we can recover this fee and then some with facility rental revenue, which we've been doing. So facility rental revenue generated over $7,500 this summer, more than made up for this.
Thanks, Sean. Yep.
Can I ask a question? I just wanted to ask, as we're talking about the sports, what about like theater, when we charge for going in to see like a theater event? Is that something that we look at too as something to lower or adjust? Or?
So it's a little bit different in
Yeah.
that part of our athletic programs funding is through the gate receipts. So it's through the funding that we receive by students or other participants coming to watch the games. So that is a part of our budgeting process, whereas the theater is a little bit different. So the price in which someone might pay for entrance into the Wizard of Oz is perhaps helping pay for costumes or helping pay for other parts of the set, or even just for making sure that the students have dinner, let's say. So it's a little bit different. It's not funding the budget like our current pay to participate is.
Okay, do we know how much, around roughly how much each show brings in?
That would be a question for, for
Jill.
the high school and
For
the
high
booster
school.
clubs that support that, but I
Okay.
will find out.
Okay.
We can
Thank
find
you.
out for you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
And again, by the way, page 2, Dane did put together a lovely matrix of everybody in our DERG to take a look at what they charge for certain events.
That's exciting. That's
It
great.
is.
I
It
hope
was a great
everybody comes
meeting.
out and sees those games.
Highly recommend our YouTube channel.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. McAvoy. Moving on to the next possible action item, it's the AHS RTP school site name.
So this is also a second read or second point of discussion. We discussed the name of the new site this past June. I believe that was on June 9th. You may remember that Dr. Tucci joined us and provided us a little bit of history around how schools were named here in Ridgefield. In your packet is the handout that was distributed that evening. And so really what you see here is the name of the site, because you might remember that we also talked about having 2 programs at the site. So it's less about the name of a school per se, but the programs that are at Prospect Ridge. So there are 2 different programs being offered there. One is Ridgefield Alternative High School at Prospect Ridge, and the second is the Ridgefield Transition Program at Prospect Ridge. I believe that you have a motion on the table.
I move that the Board of Education, wait, no, I don't have that motion.
There you go.
Bear with me
I
one.
do. Maybe.
Thank you very much. I move that the Board of Education approve the naming of the new site for the Ridgefield Alternative School and the Ridgefield Transition Program as Prospect Ridge. Upon completion of construction at 34 Halpin Lane, the location shall be recognized as Ridgefield Alternative School at Prospect Ridge and Ridgefield Transition Program at Prospect Ridge. Do I have a second? Ms. Moore. Please raise your hand if you approve and say aye. Aye.
Yes.
That's all 7 present, unanimous present. The motion passes. Thank you. All right, the next possible action item relates to the fiscal year 25 year-end report.
Okay, so I'll be turning this one over again to Mr. McAvoy this evening.
Jill
who
goes
is
on vacation. It gets really-
This is a lot of work for you
It
here.
is.
With the budget status update report for fiscal year 25, the end of the year report, and you'll notice that there's a memo on the first page from Jill, and then on the back you have the end of year report. Turning it over to you for some
Right.
highlights, Mr. McAvoy.
So end of year, net, pretty simple. The balance at the end was $501,843 in surplus. And there is a statute to be able to use unexpended funds for prior year in a non-lapsing account. We don't currently have that set up here in town. That would need to be a discussion with Board of Finance and others to make sure that we want to go forward with that or not. And as it says here, provides us with such authority. Past practice has been the surpluses remain under the discretion of town's financial leadership. Any questions on that? We did exceed what we told the town we were going to have by here, so.
So the board may remember that in the spring, there were a number of discussions of what potentially could be our surplus. As the board also knows that predicting that number really before end of the year, May, June, July is very difficult. Even then, really, up until we wrap up our books at the end of July, it can be challenging. But we did have our final number. Originally, we were saying somewhere between 275 and potentially as high as we thought, perhaps 450. But it really does depend on a lot of things as other sites, other services are closing out their books when we're actually receiving the goods to get that final number. We did end the year with $501,843. At this point, we really did not formalize any potential recommendation around the authority that the Board of Education does have and around that non-lapsing fund of 2%. And I would imagine that and I know that it is the expectation that the town is going to be expecting those funds, at least for this year, to be, I don't want to say returned because that's not the right word, to be left with the town.
Right.
Thank you. So I guess my question would be, given that the statute allows this for the board to make this decision, where and when would we have that discussion? Would that happen now, or?
I think that's right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, but it's clear that the town and the Board of Finance is expecting the money.
I think they've already built that into current year's budget.
Okay, so then there really is
Well,
no
we
discussion.
retain the authority.
Okay.
And I think, what I would recommend is that rather than discuss the sort of the vehicle by which we would exercise that authority, my recommendation would be that we discuss, what I'm interested in hearing is from the administrative team, what are the potential risks that we should consider when determining whether or not we should exercise that authority. Because for me, I can name two off the top of my head, and I'd like to hear some commentary from the administrative team. Specifically, and this is something that we spoke about during the budget cycle, and I feel like obviously there was a lot of moving targets, but we had at one point discussed the possibility of high outplacement costs related to any delays in the construction of Prospect Ridge. So I just want to sort of get maybe this is our final chance, right, to have that conversation. And then secondly, based on the professional service fees that we've paid, and I know we've made a transfer to accommodate in the budget for the cybersecurity incident that happened this past July, are there any risks associated with that work, the remediation work, anything that's going to be continuing that we need to be aware of when we make a decision to return the surplus?
Okay, so those are great questions, and let me answer the parts that I think are important for the board to know just as a whole. When it comes to this specific year, and there was a lot of back and forth, and so what you raised, Mr. Paradiso, is accurate in that there was discussions between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance on what would our vulnerabilities be in the event that we did not have a space to accommodate the students in particular that we were speaking about, that was our greater target audience, which was the Ridgefield transition program, because there were some accommodation needs, accessibility needs that needed to happen for that student population. When we really came to recognize that an opening for this particular school year was not going to be possible, just based on timing, right? We started creating individualized plans, and when I say we, I'm speaking of my colleagues and her team, Dr. Hanaway and her team, very specific to students. And so currently, we really have what is not sustainable for over time, right? We're talking about a year, a moment in time, which is not sustainable over time, but we essentially have two sites and very individualized programs being created for the student population that I'm speaking about. Dr. Hanaway has a structured plan to continue that communication model with the families to ensure that we're meeting all of the students' needs, whether those are part of a student's individualized plan or just perhaps what they actually need accessibility-wise, accommodation-wise. Those things are happening currently. But there was a significant amount of discussion across the year with our board alongside the Board of Finance. I know myself publicly at meetings discussing the potential challenges we would have if families weren't ready to take on that creative planning for students that could be longer than we would obviously hope. And so we have a plan for that population of students. That said, I think overall, and what we've outlined in this memo to the board, not necessarily this year, but I think as we move into discussions for future years, the continued volatility around special education, and that's everything that's connected to it, whether it's purchase services, transportation, incoming students. We had 4 or 5 students coming in from pretty, I would say, complex program needs this year, right in September, I believe 5 students. So that's unexpected, right? And so when you have those unexpected needs, can we maintain it with our current staff? Do we need to make changes? That's always an area that you just simply don't know. We don't have the crystal ball. We don't know who's moving in. So all of that said, that is a continued area that I think that all boards should be focusing in on and paying attention to, because it's one that we have less ability to wrap our arms around. The second part of your question, which is around the network issue that we had earlier in the year, and I know the board is expecting to have an executive session, which I believe is now scheduled for September 29th at 6 o'clock, to talk through that event and what's happened since then. What you can expect, which you've already seen, is that if you were listening into the budget meeting, is a transfer within our current budget to pick up some of those costs. And then we have an insurance and all of the associated pieces that we haven't completed that event yet, but that should be able to pick up any challenges that may come our way once, up until we close out that event completely. So that said, I think that we're in a pretty good place now, knowing what we have with our insurance and what's available to us if it's needed. So I think that we have less of a concern in that area than we might have a month ago.
Thank you for that. And just to confirm, because I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, currently the recommendation is that we return the surplus to the Board of Finance as part of the year-end procedures.
I believe, A, it's what they're expecting, and B, I think that we have accommodated what we could have potentially seen as a vulnerability. That said, I think it is important for the community and the Board of Education to know there is a vulnerability always around certain areas. And by the way, it's not just special ed, the other one is facilities. And that's just a natural, something can happen. Fire code, and all of a sudden you're in harm's way, in which you didn't necessarily plan for budget-wise. That is always something that the town can potentially expect us to come and say at the end of the year, we've done our best here, but we're falling short. You might remember last year we fell short with our excess cost reimbursement. So we made that clear with the town at that point. It is also important for the Board of Education to expect from the administration regular reports on how that's going, so that if that is where we might end up in some financial need with the town, that they're not surprised and that's something that they can see coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for that. Just procedurally, is this something that we would revisit each year and discuss? Or, I mean, it sounds like the mindset, or I guess the only reason I brought it up is I was curious what the thoughts around the table were about this new legislation. And I do
understand the legislation changed it from 1% to 2%. It's always been there.
Oh, I thank you for that.
They just increased the amount.
I thought we were never able to
So there is a little bit of a difference. So you could have, so what Mr. McAvoy is speaking to is districts had the ability to work in partnership with their town on a non-lapsing account. So for example, we set aside money in my first year in partnership with the town, so that was about 4 or 5 years ago when the pandemic was upon us, to set aside some funds for the purpose, and it was really very much geared towards a particular reason, and that was the COVID pandemic and in connection with resources that we would need to be able to manage school at that time. But since that time, so at that point, you needed to work in partnership and the town had the authority in which to allow you to put that percentage in the non-lapsing account. The change here is that now the Board of Education has that authority. You have the ability to make that decision, where in the past, it wasn't within the Board of Ed's authority. It was within your town. So that is a difference that happened this past year. We bring it up in this memo so that you're reminded that that is within your authority. Whether or not the Board of Education chooses to use it or prefers to work with the town in terms of, okay, what is it that we might see as a vulnerability, and in future years when there's some movement within the budget, whether it's the town or ours, let's put some money aside for X, Y, or Z. That's up to this board. Again, we always want to partner, so our recommendation would be to do that.
Yeah, and I would just add one thing,
Yeah.
which is this statute has been in place. It's changed a little bit over the last 4 or 5 years in terms of the amounts, to Mr. McAvoy's point. But I don't believe previous boards have exercised that authority, at least in my understanding. Just the one time for the COVID pandemic number. And I think it's relevant now only because it was discussed during our budgetary cycle in the first quarter. I would recommend that this be part of an annual review, when we complete our fiscal year set of financials that, likely starts at the budget committee and then comes to the full board. But to me, this is hopefully an adaptation that will continue as we go forward.
My concern is by the time we get, let's say, last year's budget sorted out, and to our board, which we just got the number, the budget's already been set for the next year. So we're working in arrears, basically, on timeline, which is challenging.
No, and I appreciate the discussion because Dr. De Silva just explained it. So there is a distinction in the fact that the Board of Education now has the authority to make the decision. And that's an important distinction to make for the community and for the board. I'm not suggesting that we go forward with this at all. I think it's very important to work in good faith with the Board of Finance and respect, that partnership and what they believe is the best way to go forward. But I think there's nothing wrong with having the discussion and finding out how everyone feels about it. And I appreciate your recommendation. I respect that. So thank you.
Ms. Moore, just to Mr. McAvoy's point and something you just mentioned now, Mr. Paradiso as well, I would suggest that if you're going to revisit this, I would suggest that again, whether it's at a tri-board meeting or however you all see fit, at the board's discretion, is to have that conversation earlier on, right? So your March, April, if there is a surplus, if there is a surplus, do we want to X, Y, or Z, or do we not want to X, Y, and Z? And again, with your partners.
Yeah, I will remind the board that we did start to have this conversation in the spring, and we said, let's wait until we have the final number.
Correct.
Now we have the final number, and unfortunately the town, I was just told recently, is closing their books this week. So I think that's the impetus for the urgency of this discussion.
And you may want to also look at patterns over time with special ed and see where that lands and whether or not you want that safety net of saying, okay, if there's money left over, this is how we'd like to use it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an opportunity for us to increase transparency, increase timeliness, and something we should likely be looking at going forward.
Well, and remember, we always have an ability to go back to the Board of Finance for additional funding. And to me, that's an extra layer of transparency right there. And if it's over a certain threshold, it needs to go back to our taxpayers for a vote.
Yeah, the town meeting, that's right.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I move that the Board of Education approve the 2024 to 25 end-of-year financial report presented on September 8th, 2025. Do I have a second? Sean, thank you. Please raise your hand and say aye if you also approve. Aye.
I think she's gone.
She's off. All right, so we're at 6 board members now. All 6 board members have approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, I think we're about to turn over to Mr. McAvoy again. The next possible action item
When's Jill coming back again?
relates to transfers.
This is hard work. I have to talk a lot. So we're talking about this year's budget report as of August 31st, 2025. Not much to report because it's so early in the year, but so far 84% of the budget has been appropriated. There's a couple of items that don't fall into that yet, which is additional encumbrances are pension contributions, the base bus contract, those will be in coming weeks. And that's about it for that one.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I move that the Board of Education accept the financial report ending August 31st, 2025. Do I have a second? Ms. Moore, thank you. If you approve, please raise your hand, indicate, and say aye. That's great. So all 6 members approved unanimously. Thank you very much. The next action item on this list.
It's me again.
Is transfers. Yes, thank you very much.
It's early in the year. There's only a couple of them here. There's a small transfer at the high school to cover some textbook shipping. There's a small one on facilities to cover a ductless condensing unit in the server room at RHS. I think that's Wes's fault. We'll blame him for that one. But the bigger one here is, we were talking about the cybersecurity event. There's $200,000 worth of transfer coming from Farmingville and Scotland from some sections that did not break. So some teacher funding that can be moved over to that line item. And it totals $200,000, $88,672 from Scotland, or from Farmingville rather, and $111,328 from Scotland.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions from the board?
Just quickly, thank you, Sean. Are these salaries, teacher salaries?
So we had, as you know, we base our budget. We go, so the projected versus budget. So we were over 4 sections in teacher salaries. So this is taking 2 of those sections and making the transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please raise your hand and indicate if you approve by saying aye. Aye. It's unanimous of all members present. That's 6. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Our next possible action item relates to BOE Bylaw 9130 on committees. I'll turn it over to Dr. De Silva.
Thank you. You have bylaw of the board 9130, which really is very specific to committees, how they get established, when they meet, how the duties are formed, et cetera. One of the challenges that committees have faced is at times, for a variety of reasons, one member or another can't attend. And when that happens, unfortunately, if there isn't a quorum of the committee's work can't continue. So for example, let's just say the budget, you have Jill there, you have Dane there, you might have Sean, but then let's say other members, things comes up, life happens. And with such small groups, when life happens, unfortunately, you actually can't hold the committee or the meeting because you don't have a quorum of that committee. So what we're recommending is that there be ad hoc members potentially added or available to the board so that in the event that someone isn't able to attend, I could say, Ms. Moore, Mr. Paradiso, Mr. Collin, can you please join this committee? And you would attend. So at this point, I think we have some language that's going to be shared around revising this bylaw, and then it would have to come back for a second read. So I'll turn that over to Mr. Paradiso.
Yes, thank you, Dr. De Silva. And yes, the full intent of this change to our bylaws is to ensure that we have the flexibility to reach quorum for our committees. There's really no other no other bells and whistles here. We do clean up some language. The original bylaw referenced the superintendent and chairperson as ex officio non-voting members. Our committees do not have a voting function. We don't take votes, so we're also considering striking that from the text of the bylaw as well. And then, if you'll entertain me, I'll just briefly read the language that we're looking to add. In the event a committee cannot achieve a quorum of its appointed members, the board chairperson may designate other members of the board to serve on the committee in an ad hoc capacity for that meeting only, in order to ensure that the work of the committee may proceed. The board chairperson is not required to provide advance notice to the full board when making such a designation. Such ad hoc participation shall be recorded in the committee's minutes. ad hoc members shall have the same rights and responsibilities as regular committee members for the duration of that meeting. And that's the text. So we will bring it back for a second read and a vote on the 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paradiso. That will actually be very helpful to us.
Okay, our next action item is an update on Forever Summer Bridge, Jumpstart, Course Recovery, and ESY.
So we are going to start off with Ms. Gillette, who is going to provide an update on Summer Bridge et al. I'll start there. So you might remember that Summer Bridge really came out as a result initially of ESSER funding that we had and the pandemic, where we wanted to give our students an opportunity that summer after they experienced COVID to come out, to socialize, to experience a lighter side of summer, and most certainly if there was an opportunity to bring in the academics, we would do so long as they were having fun while doing it. That Summer Bridge program lived beyond ESSER funds, and it grew. In addition to Forever Summer Bridge, we have Jumpstart to Middle School and Course Recovery, which you might remember Ms. Gillette speaking about last year, and the budget in particular around Course Recovery. Summer Bridge is now actually funded by parents. We don't make a profit on it. We're not here to do that, but really what we do want to have is a program that's available to kids, to families, and where possible can transition into, if needed, for our students with ESY services. So here we are today, 4 years later, I think, right, Ms. Gillette? 4 years later, yeah, 4.
Maybe the 5th year?
I don't think it's 5, but 4 years later, and it keeps getting better and better. And that's really thanks to Corey and her team that continue to just want to grow it to be the best that it can be.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I'm here tonight to give you an update on these summer programs, Forever Summer Bridge, Jumpstart to Middle School, and Course Recovery. Before I begin, I have to acknowledge the dedicated team that made all of this possible. So forgive me for a minute, I'm gonna read their names. I didn't ask them to come tonight, except Mary Ellen is here, because I've asked them in the past and school just started and they're busy. So Forever Summer Bridge, the elementary program was led by Ryan Dunn and Liz Van Dyne. The middle school program by Kathleen Granger. Martha DeSantis ran the high school program. Tim Luxinger was our administrator in charge, and Christine Melograno has been our chief operating officer for all of these programs. Jumpstart to Middle School was run again and always by Amanda Johnson and Shane Peters, and Course Recovery was run by Mary Ellen Foley. I also do not want to forget a big thank you to all of the RHS volunteers. So a lot of our high school students volunteer to work at the elementary and the middle school programs. They donate their time and they make those programs extra special for our students. I also want to thank all the wonderful RPS staff that brought these programs to life for our students in the summer. We are very grateful to report another incredible summer. All programs were successful and their growth is evident. I'm going to move quickly through these slides since there are a lot of words on them and you got to see them in advance. And I'll spend a little time after each program to talk about our reflections and thoughts for next year. Next slide, please. So Elementary Bridge, we continue to level up this year with our incredible staff and directors. We had 3 themed weeks, which we further developed out in terms of the curriculum and projects that students were engaged in across each of the weeks. STEAM, creative arts, and sports. One of the things we were really excited about and really proud of were the culminating activities every Friday. We continued to have our cardboard carnival on the first week, but the art activity, the student showcase was new, and the last week we had an epic field day, really quite exceptional. So really proud of that. Next slide, please. I just want you to get a quick look at the number of students per session. We had 3 one-week sessions, full one-week sessions, and our numbers are stronger this year than they were last year at the elementary level. Next slide, please. So middle school, something new in middle school this year was we added an additional week. So instead of 2 weeks of what we call intensives, we had 3 weeks. We filled all the sessions. Some big favorites, I didn't know, fishing. Middle school kids love to fish. It was our first program sold out there, and I'm sure next year we're going to try to get more than one session because that was a hot ticket. And again, all our favorites came back. Vocal Academy, the kitchens at RHS, because that's where we hold it, were packed and full of tons of kids cooking. And I also heard from high school kids that that was a great volunteer gig if you got to work in the kitchens. So middle school, again, we added a week. It really paid off. It was a great session this summer. So the next slide, please. So high schoolers, we tried so hard. Our director, Martha DeSantis, she did everything that she could. And our teachers put out the most incredible options for our high school kids. But I think they're busy. And when I saw how many high school kids were enrolled as volunteers, I realized that they weren't attending these sessions because they were volunteering with the elementary and the middle school kids, or they were doing other things, or they were working, or they were, going to camp or doing other things. So really the high school program, our Jumpstart, freshman Jumpstart, we had great numbers there. We did run a course for credit. This year it was personal finance. That went really well, but we were only able to open 2 other sections, and that was crime scene forensics, which was amazing. I wish I could have attended that one, and explorations in computer science. So some changes probably coming along the way for our high school program. So in reflection on Summer Bridge, one thing to remind you all that Dr. De Silva said is that we are definitely not looking to make a profit. We just want to pay our teachers and cover our supplies because it's like a little mini business on the side. We can't, there's no one to help if we run out of money. So good thing I have Jeff Corbishley making sure that all the numbers add up. And we really do our best in terms of, we also do provide scholarships, and we do really make sure that we can run as many sessions as possible. So one of our thoughts for next year is thinking about really celebrating and enhancing those volunteer activities, really marketing that more in our high school. It goes along with all the work that they're doing this year around the core values. So that's one area we're going to lean into. And then we're thinking about combining high schools and middle school so that we're offering courses for rising 6th through 9th graders, because we really feel like those are the students, so they're currently in middle school, transitioning in high school. Those are the students that seem to be the most open, have the most time in their schedule to attend these types of courses. And it's also another great way to transition into the high school. Because it's in the high school, they get to meet students from other schools, and they get to move around the school so they can attend Jumpstart and something else. So that's some of our ideas, continuing to make sure that we are charging as little as we possibly can and still paying our teachers and covering expenses, and then really being responsive to the feedback that we get, both in our feedback forms, but also really in how our students vote with their feet, right? What do they want to attend and what do they not want to attend? So that's Forever Summer Bridge. Thank you very much. So next slide. So a reminder that thanks to this Board of Education, Jumpstart to Middle School was available for all of our middle school students again this summer at no cost. We've never charged for this, and we have had really high attendance, and you can see from the slides we had slightly more students at CERMS attend, and we have slightly more students at CERMS anyway. Next slide, please. Just a quick reminder of the goals of the program. I wish everybody could stop by and see the engagement of the students with the teachers and the way that they make executive functions seem fun. Planning and organizing and moving around the schools, playing with the lockers, and really meeting friends and connecting with teachers. Next slide. So really big thank you again. That was 240 rising 6th graders who enjoyed that really supportive social and emotional program. Thanks to all of you. And the last program, please, next slide. So course recovery. So one of the things that's really exciting about course recovery is how this program has really expanded over the years, and Mary Ellen is in the audience, so I really do credit her and her team and the team at the high school for expanding the ways that students can engage in this very supportive and adaptable program. We're really thinking about changing the name. I don't know exactly what we're going to call it, but it's not just about recovering courses. It's an opportunity for students who have incompletes to come and make up that work in a really supportive, small group setting. It's an opportunity for students who didn't do well in a class that builds on another class. Think about your math classes. If you really struggled in algebra, maybe you had something going on in your life during algebra, you may have passed, but you still might have missing foundational skills that are super essential when you take your next math class. We had students in there working with us for that, and some students only came for a week. We had students from the alternative high school. We provided EL services, and we work closely with ESY to make sure that if there's anything that we're offering that's helpful for any of the students attending ESY, that we can provide that overlapping support. So a continued success. Really, Mary Ellen shared some of the parent feedback that she got, and it's really, it's pretty emotional to read about kids really finding an opportunity to connect with teachers and with content in perhaps a year in their life that was tough, or when things didn't come easy. This was a place where they were able to get over that hump that they needed. So this is a really, really important course, and it fits into all the work that we're doing at the high school this year when we're talking about our priorities tonight in terms of MTSS and making sure that we're supporting students in all the ways that they need. So look forward to hearing more about where we take this really, really special experience for kids. So that's it. Thank you so much. Those are our courses. And I don't know if you want questions now or if you want Liz to go on to ESY.
I would suggest separating them out because they're two different types
Good
of
idea.
programs.
Yeah. So does the board have any questions for Ms. Gillette?
Not a question, just wanted to thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an incredible program. Thank you to everyone involved, teachers, and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
We have a good crowd tonight, so we can get, please welcome applause at any point. All right, Dr. Hanaway, thank you.
Dr. Hanaway, before you jump in, if it's all right, Mr. Paradiso, I'm thinking back to your question around the non-lapsing fund. And at one point, I was going to let you jump in, Dr. Hanaway, but I forgot. So is there anything that you might want to add there around special education and our student population?
Yeah, so you had asked the question if we've incurred any outplacements as a result of the building. We have not. We've worked really hard with families, and we're so grateful for the partnership of families to think creatively and flexibly with us during this time. I just had a phone call with a transition program parent this morning who said, you know, I'm just so grateful that my child has somewhere to go in this interim period where they can get their services, but we're all just buzzing, anxious for the building to open as parents talk. And then the second piece is, while we have not incurred outplacement costs, we have incurred some costs related to transportation and staffing supports because students are not in one location. So inevitably you lose an efficiency, and those efficiencies come in transportation, they come in paraeducator support, and they come in related services like speech and language, physical therapy, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear as a result of that question.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you very much. And honestly, I think this board and really the entire community would really love to continue to get updates on this. I think there's disappointment that the building won't be open for the start of the school year, and I think we really owe it to the community to try to be as transparent as possible about the consequences of that.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, so turning it over to ESY.
Yep. So I am really proud to report to you tonight on our extended school year programming, but I feel a little guilty because I'm the one who did the least amount of work for our extended school year programming this school year. I have to give credit first and foremost to Dr. Anthony Shoa, who's the Assistant Director of Special Education, who has really spearheaded and evolved our program in a very robust way the last few years. And this year, for the first time, we had 2 ESY coordinators. ESY stands for Extended School Year. Kate Collins Collins, who's our new middle school special education supervisor, and Carrie Tai, who's our assistant principal at Branchville, which was really amazing for both programs to have full-time administration on site. And really amazing for Tony and me because it reserved time for us to get a lot of work done this summer that has been hard to do as heavily he, but me as well, has split some time with ESY in the summer. We're both involved, but Carrie and Kate were huge impacts. So our extended school year is a required program by law under federal and state law for all students to be considered at their annual reviews who have special education services. So the law requires that we review whether or not students require in order to maintain skills without significant regression over the summertime. And there is a criteria that the state of Connecticut gives us to apply at PPT meetings to determine if students qualify. The state defines ESY as the exception, not the rule for eligibility, and we follow that. Our ESY runs for 4 weeks for most programs and 5 weeks for RISE. We have 4 main programs within ESY. We have our RISE program that continues. We have something called an Academy program, which is an academic-based program that is a half-day program. Students come for reading, writing, and math. And then we have an itinerant services program, which you could think of as like tutoring in a sense for individual services, whether it be speech and language, structured literacy, counseling, occupational therapy. And so a student might come once a week or twice a week, and that's it. For that specific service. And then we have our Best Buddies program, which we're so proud of, and we collaborate with Corey to promote, which is a 1-week social skills program, which is kind of in a day camp format. And it's our way of achieving 2 things. One, to promote inclusion around the community, which I think we are so proud that we have had a significant increase in peer applications for Best Buddies. We've had more applications than we've had availability for slots. But it also helps us provide social skills services to students during ESY in an authentic way. ESY is very different for our students in some ways because there are only students who are receiving IEPs in the program, which is not what they experience during the school year. So Best Buddies is a wonderful opportunity for us to provide a sustained, authentic social skills experience. And we have heard over and over again from families that the pair of a buddy, because we literally pair student to student, and we try to make it students who are in their same school and ideally even their grade level or close to, so that they can sustain relationships. And we have heard from families over time that the relationships sustain for a lot of students and a lot of buddies after the summer is over. So of all 4 of those programs, which runs from preschool through age 22, we served almost 400 students combined with all 4 programs, and we're really, really proud about that. And that trend is about consistent with what we had last year. The 2 sites that we have used in the past, and we did again this past summer, is our Barlow Mountain and Scotts Ridge, which has worked out very well. We have had, this past year, 60 certified staff and 70 non-certified staff. So it is quite literally a pop-up school in the summer. And we are incredibly, incredibly grateful to facilities and maintenance and transportation because they literally turn over the world for us, and particularly for transportation for Billy Gramajo, where he is preparing for his busiest time of the year, which is the August runs to go out. He's also preparing all of our ESY runs because students who receive services receive transportation. So it is incredibly busy, and we're so grateful to them. We begin planning in January, so they get a little bit of a reprieve in the start of the school year, and then not quite as early as budget, but just about after that, we start planning for ESY, and we seek feedback from parents on how the program is run. We make tweaks every summer, and we also support our staff to ensure that their data collection process is robust so that students who need to be eligible are eligible, and students who should not be eligible are not recommended for the program because we want to make sure that we reserve for kids who are eligible. So we're really, really proud of it. Any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Hanaway? I just want to say thank you so much. The Best Buddy program is just fantastic, and it's really impactful for both buddies, and I think that spirit of inclusion gets brought into the school year directly from Best Buddies, and it's something that just it's a compound interest. It just keeps getting better and better. So great work. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to our next action item. It's the introduction of the annual RPS theme and 2025 to 26 district priorities.
Thank you. And so it looks like Ms. Salgado left, but I thought she did a great job tonight of introducing our theme, so maybe I can cut it short. But it really, each year, as the Board of Education knows, at least in the 5 years that I've been here, we have introduced an anchor, and that anchor is intended to support the entire district. It doesn't mean that we're all doing the same thing at the same time, but what is it that we're going to wrap ourselves around over the course of the year, pre-K all the way up, and that includes every student, every faculty member, and hopefully the community at large. So this year, we move forward under the theme Better Together, and it really reflects what makes Ridgefield strong: the collective energy of our students, the staff, families, and the wider community, some of which you heard here tonight during our public session. So whether we're focused on our teaching, wellness, or operations, gains meaning and strength when we approach it with collaboration at the core. So the way we look at it is we're all on the same team. There's no right, no wrong, so if I win and you lose, that's not really a team. That's not the way it works. So as a community, we do choose collaboration over competition. That's how we see this theme. We choose respect even when we disagree. We choose to be honest and clear even when it's hard. We choose to listen before we react, or at minimum, sometimes we remind one another to listen before we react. And we choose to create environments where people can take risks, and we choose to always keep the students at our core. So as we begin this school year and you listen to our priorities tonight, I want to remind everyone of our excellent teachers, our motivated and highly engaged students, our supportive families, and it's the way that we come together as a community that we believe makes Ridgefield Public Schools a place where every child can thrive. And certainly I think that we have seen many bits of evidence of that across the school year. So this year, our theme, Better Together, captures that spirit. None of our work is done in isolation. We come together, we strengthen curriculum, expand mental health supports, we invest in athletics and facilities, deepening our partnerships with families, and we know that progress is only possible when we move forward together. And so as they say, the smartest person in the room is the room, and we recognize that the wisdom of the groups is greater than the one, and that we need the team. So in that spirit, we're going to transition over to our priorities. And it's my understanding that Mr. McAvoy is going to do all of Jill's. I'm just kidding. So we did spend some time, and I don't know, Wes, if you can just put up the screenshot there, but we did spend some time during the Board of Ed retreat highlighting some of the work that's going to happen over the course of the school year. And you all have a very thick packet that you've had since Friday, and we won't spend time going word by word, but we do want to highlight a few pieces that you may have not heard us speak to you about on August 25th that you're going to want to know. So I'm going to turn it over first to Corey with Teaching and Learning.
Okay, good evening again, and I will be fast, but before I start with my highlights, I do have to first acknowledge that although these priorities are under my department, their success depends on the collaboration of educators and leaders across this district. I am deeply grateful for their dedication and commitment to the students of RPS. So I know you've had an opportunity to review the full list of priorities from my team and the action steps, so I'll just focus on highlighting a few key areas. So one of the things I wanted to highlight is how we've been focusing the last couple years on communicating budget asks in advance, because we want to make sure that you have a clear understanding if any priorities are connected to a budget implication. So one of the things that we've talked about a lot, and that we're in our first year with, is a new staff member for the academically and intellectually gifted. I know I still can't even say it. So last year, you asked whether or not one staff member was enough. And we're asking this staff member to support students, programming, and teachers, as well as enrichment at the K-5 level. So we listened, and we are currently studying that question, and we'll share data before the superintendent's budget presentation. So far, this position is off to a great start. So, the other area I'm going to highlight around a definite budget ask is elementary world language. With the board's support, we're implementing world language instruction at the elementary level K-5 for the first time. It is magical. This fall, you can expect a presentation with a budget request for the third and final elementary world language teacher. So those were the two areas that we're going to come back to you with information. Again, only one budget request at this time. Just going to give you information on the AIG because you asked for it. So again, across our priorities, we showcase how we are growing our practices. One area I want to point out is in the science of reading. You can never stop learning how to teach reading. It continues to be a complex science. So as we continue to study best practices and ensure our teachers have the access to the best professional learning available, that implementation never ends. So I want to add that this fall, 3 cohorts of teachers from the elementary level, which includes teachers, teacher leaders, and administrators, will be participating in something called ReadCon 2.0, which is offered by the state for free. It's a 2-year Science of Reading professional learning series that's accredited by the International Dyslexia Association. Teachers will also have the opportunity to earn a new certificate for structured literacy classroom teacher knowledge. So this is something new that the state is offering, and that's just to connect to our priorities around the science of reading and our continued work in that area. Again, you heard about Summer Bridge tonight. And when we're talking about growing our practices, emerging technologies, of course, is an area where we are going to continue to be working this year. You'll see several action steps tied to that, how they impact the classroom, professional learning for teachers, and how we can create clear communication with parents on what we believe when it comes to technology and teaching. We continue to expand opportunities across all departments. I'm excited for you to hear what's happening in PE at the high school. Remember, this is the first year that our students are getting to choose the kind of PE that they participate in. So you can expect to hear from our teachers on how that's going and what's going to happen next as a result of our first year implementation. Social and emotional learning continues, of course, to be a high priority for us. It's embedded across K-12 priorities. We have a robust plan for continued professional learning. We have 2 SEL deans now at the middle schools for the first time, 1 at each middle school, and we are implementing restorative practices PK-12. We are also building out the SEL behavior pathway in MTSS, ensuring students receive tiered supports that match their individual needs. That was my quick overview. That's only a few highlights of the many, many things that are underway. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Ms. Gillette on this section? I'll just ask one. Ms. Gillette, we've got the emerging technology bullet point there. That's one thing I think we've heard from the community a little bit over the past summer.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure as we approach that from a priority standpoint, we maintain an emphasis on data-driven decision-making.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just as a point of reference, when we bring back the timeline for the Board of Education, probably September 29th, you'll see how we're going to outline the presentations over the course of the year. Again, making sure that we're front-loading anything that's going to have a budget connection.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next set of priorities is around facilities, and Joe did spend quite a bit of time with the board in August describing his priorities. Again, the master plan, the board had a significant amount of questions after we received our first report. We're now working with our vendor to break that down, and so the first part of that report will come to the Board of Education in October. They've now coordinated with an educational group which you all recognize, Mike Zuba, who does our demographic work. He's going to be coming in October to do the capacity and utilization. So he's actually going to do the demographic work at that same time. So you'll be able to see that connection around the demographics for 10 years, history, and again, the class size and utilization. And then we'll go to the next phase of the master planning. So, and with that, we believe that it is important to make sure that our town boards are paying attention to what's happening and also having the opportunity to ask us questions either in advance or after those presentations. You can see that another priority for Joe is to ensure that the learning space is meeting the goals of both the transition program and the alternative high school program. And that also includes the furnishing the space and making sure that that space is not only physically equipped, meaning the accessibility needs, but within the space, is it capturing what we want for our students. Preschool population is a population that we continue to watch very closely, in special education in particular, and studying the allocation of that space to ensure that the students are getting the appropriate amount of time in addition to having a space for them. And then lastly, as you heard from Mr. Collin earlier this evening when we talked about the work of the strategic planning meeting, we have 2 auditorium spaces that are in the process of being studied. One is much more significant, let's say, in terms of the cost, at least, than the other, but the board can expect to hear what's happening at VP and our partnership with the Historical Society in maintaining the integrity of the space, while also making sure that it's meeting the needs of students in 2025 and beyond. And a second presentation that the Board of Education can expect in October is our second vendor who has been studying the high school auditorium and offering the board some options to consider as you begin to put in or the appropriate level of funding for the planning within the capital projects plan for the future. So I'll stop there.
Any questions on facilities? None. I was just curious. I think the majority of these topics will be discussed first at the Strategic Planning Committee level. Is that correct?
So what I heard the Board of Education discuss in August, late August, was really around finding efficiencies as much as possible with your meetings, and where possible to have presentations at the Strategic Planning Committee. The Strategic Planning Committee did decide that 2 presentations should come to the full board, and that was the auditorium options. And there's like a streamlined version, so it's like a next step. That would be the auditorium, the high school auditorium options. And then the second one is the capacity and utilization, and feeling like that really is a big item that the full board should hear.
Should we anticipate any votes to take place between now and sort of the initial presentation of the budget?
So likely when the Board of Education, if the Board of Education looks to amend what is currently in the capital plan, which is now 3 years out for the auditorium with a dollar amount, I think it was 19 million, based on those options and what the board might say, option A, option B, option C, we think option B, this comes with a price tag of this, we're gonna revise that, or potentially no. One of the other discussion points that came up in the Strategic Planning Committee is where does fundraising or town partnerships or community partnerships play a role? And so that's something that we're gonna need to be prepared to share with you all as well. We do have partnerships like that. We have one which is called Tiger Hollow and Tiger Hollow Inc. But that's really comes with some, pros and cons in terms of when you have a partnership like that and ensuring that everybody's on the same page in terms of the future, and they are. So that's not I'm not judging them, but every partnership is different. So just being sure that we're all understanding that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Ms. Brown has several priorities as well within business and operations. What we've come to learn and we continue to learn is just being sure that we have detailed procedure manuals so that they can live beyond us and there's a safe place in which to do that. So having that library of retrievable shared documents that outline all of the steps, so regardless of who's in those seats, that we have the duplication of services available to us. We're also looking at the different environments that we're in, Windows, Mac, Google-based, web-based, and whether or not that could support the security opportunities or enhanced opportunities for the future. And so that's an area that we're studying not only ourselves, of course, but with partners that are doing this work and are becoming real experts, if there is an expert in the ever-changing work around technology and the challenges with respect to safety. You're going to see that Ms. Brown has another priority around continuing the work with DAS and partnering with the town around reimbursement, most specifically the roofs. And of course, if the auditorium is an option, that's also one that she will be working on. It is really quite the partnership when you have something like those town roofs, because that's not something that we're necessarily leading, it's the town, so making sure that they're giving us the information and their timelines match up with DAS, which is really the biggest issue. And this is not a criticism of the town at all, but lining those pieces up and making sure that they're happening when they need to happen for the purposes of reimbursement, which is at about a 23.5%, can be really tricky, especially when there's a sense of urgency. You have a leak, you have to take care of it, you can't wait. You lose that opportunity. So thinking about how we can plan ahead. And I should have mentioned this, what we did do this year is we embedded security within wherever it was most appropriate. And in this particular case, which you've noticed with the security tab on our website, is really ensuring that what we can present publicly, which is always a tricky spot, and our advisement really has been from our director of security, who's here tonight, our chief of police, and best practices in the literature. I can't speak for other communities and what they choose or choose not to do, but really generally when it comes to the actual practices, what we have, what we don't have in terms of doors and windows and all of those things, certainly you can see them in a budget. But you really want to keep any vulnerability out of the public eye when it comes to some of those more facility types of items. And also when it comes to procedures, making sure that we have our emergency management process in place. We've had an opportunity to practice that and have communicated to the public. If there is an emergency situation, what does it look like in terms of reunifying? And as Ms. Brown shared, reunifying can look very different. So for example, most recently at Barlow, we had to evacuate the building at the very end of the school day. Because of some smoke, the fire detectors went off. That process in reunifying is a traditional, typical reunification process. Looked a little bit different, the sense of the emergency was a little bit different, but how are we planning for that and how are we communicating that with families? To add, when you have two other sites that are connected to your building, so for example, the preschool and the pool, right? So you have three facilities, and then you have Scotland across the way. So being sure that we do that work and again, communicate what we can communicate. And again, with our emergency, I know Sean is a part of that, but our emergency response team here in town, making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think I connected two of the priorities there. So I think that is it for Ms. Brown. Questions?
I just had one related to something we heard from the public this evening. Do we have plans to include the reunification sort of instructions and how to share that? Because I have to admit, I didn't know, right? I'm on the Board of Education and I didn't know what the process was going to be at my own school.
So you're right. So there is a plan, and we are continuing to work on our plan since our Director of Security has come, which has been just about 2 years. He had completed the assessment, if you remember. Both Josh and one of his colleagues had completed an assessment of all of our buildings. Now we're getting to the next phase of that work. We have a reunification plan. Now we're practicing that plan, make sure everything works, and then that'll be communicated in terms of step-by-step what families need to know. And you actually heard some of it tonight. Who do you communicate with? When do you not communicate? Where do you go? Where do you not go? And some of that, like the where do you go part, may actually not be public until that actual day, right? So there's some procedures there, but again, to your point, we want to be sure that our families know in the event that it happens.
I would encourage the district also to really provide the opportunity for feedback from parents. I think obviously you've given this a lot of thought, but I'm sure this is something that parents care a lot about.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we give them that opportunity.
Thank you. And I think certainly when it comes to the time for budget and when you see different measures coming in, whether that's cameras or bollards you've heard us speak about before, is really being sure that we're transparent with adding the layers of security. We don't need to necessarily get into the details, but understanding that there's adds here that are important financially.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn mental health over to Dr. Hanaway.
Yes. So I am excited about the work we have ahead of us this coming school year in the area of mental health, which is its own standalone priority, but really is woven into teaching and learning heavily because of the amount of collaboration that happens between my and Corey's department around this topic. So what the board can expect in terms of our priorities is to continue the work with the athletics and mental health. I think they got off to a great start, and so we're not done. It's really now about targeting more coaches who need differentiated support for their athletes, to embed it more in team meetings and preseason orientations, regular communications. We're going to really be focusing on strengthening the partnership between athletics and our mental health department and pupil personnel staff at the high school. Because they have a lot of natural inroads. I know that there are ad hoc conversations that happen right now, say between a social worker and Dane or a coach, but we want to clarify those protocols and processes more. And then importantly, gather student athlete feedback to look at the impact now of the work that we're doing with our coaches and with our teams. Okay, so we're doing this work. Do students feel it? What's their experience as a result of it? And then, of course, make sure that families are in the loop, not only with the work that's happening, but resources that are available to them. So I'm excited to see that work grow with the athletics department, but also to be a part of it. We are also looking, and I think some of this is outlined in our athletics piece of this priority, but really to kind of integrate our mental health and wellness initiatives. So Christine, you have asked sometimes in the past about like, can I see all of the programs across the schools? Well, whether it's special services or social emotional learning, or I'll say mental health or behavior. And I think that we want to make sure that not only our community, but our staff is clear on what falls where and how all these things work together, right? And make sure that they are as effective as possible, because they're not meant to be a bag of tricks. Really, they're not. They're meant to be interwoven and used for very specific purposes. So, we've spent a lot of time speaking at the high school and now more at the middle schools around how can we streamline this for students to make it more effective for them. And really the Thrive Together campaign that we introduced at the end of last school year that is getting underway this September in terms of starting to pull staff into the process is really all about that, is to create a larger umbrella and to make sure that our components address pieces of our students' experience that truly impacts their mental health. And the way we're defining wellness right now is about balance. That has been a big piece of our work so far in just getting Thrive Together under the way, is what does wellness even mean? And to us, for students, it means balance. I think that's something kids can relate to, and it's tangible enough. And it also can be differentiated depending on who the kid is and what that means to them. But that absolutely means their use of their day, whether it's the flex period, their homework, yes, their device and cell phone use, their test taking, their course load and course selection, and their extracurriculars and their attendance. So all of these, we're looking to really make sure are parts of that work. And it's not just about providing students with opportunity for wellness initiatives that we know that historically they don't take advantage of. Students are not regularly enough taking advantage of things that are being offered to them, like breaks, like opportunity to meet with a mental health staff member, like some kind of fun activity. We don't have enough high engagement consistently. And I'm not specifically talking about the high school year. I'm just talking in general at the secondary level. And so we're looking to see how can we make it more practical and applicable for our students. And then I think we're really excited about adding social workers to our elementary level. We're so grateful to the board and to the community for that support because it's very much needed. And so we're going to study the impact of having social workers at the elementary level on our families and our students, not only in school, but really out of school. The quality of a social worker has a lot to do with community-based systems and family-based support. It's not something we've had at the elementary level, and I think it's something that we're seeing a need for. So we're very excited we've begun that implementation, but also to gather feedback from staff and families to see the benefits of this shift and how we can align it at the K-12 level. So that's mental health, not special ed.
Any questions on the mental health? Yeah.
Thank you for this. And, you know, I want to commend you on many of these initiatives. I think they're very important and they will be absolutely impactful. I look forward to hearing more about them throughout the school year, especially the gathering student-athlete feedback. You know, I'd love to hear how you will be gathering that and how we can encourage kids to be honest, perhaps if it's an anonymous, you know, because a lot of the kids, and I've shared that publicly before, they fear retribution. So we really want to make sure that we're getting honest feedback from kids. So thank you for that. And I also look forward to hearing about Thrive and how you're attracting the students to participate. And you know, will all kids be involved in this? Will it be something where it's, you know, perhaps in flex or something like that? So kids are, it's not necessarily optional. So I'm looking forward to that. And also just the social workers, I was curious, I think it's fantastic. Will the social workers be pulling kids in small groups?
Yes.
And doing
Yes,
lunch
they're
bunches
going to
and
be
things like that?
providing direct services to
Okay.
students, but they're also going to prioritize some of their time for family support, specifically for those students who were seeing impacts from the home
Right.
carryover in school.
Okay.
I mean, all students bring home into school. I mean, they
Right.
can't, they don't compartmentalize themselves, and they
Right.
shouldn't. But for those students whose immediate situation really is impacting them in school days, social workers are definitely going to prioritize there. But they're going to see students in social groups. They're going to see students for one-on-one.
Okay.
And they're also going to see classroom-based lessons and be a part of our MTSS process.
That's fantastic. That I was going to ask if they're going to be consulting with teachers, so I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, and in addition to this, I didn't highlight this in the packet. Along with implementing social workers at the elementary, we're going to be doing, for the first time since I've been here, specific professional development on understanding trauma.
Okay.
And understanding the impact of early childhood experiences and early childhood adverse experiences on students, because that's really kind of getting at the heart of not what happened, but why is it happening? And I think it's really, really important for us to be asking why.
Yeah.
Really important, and that's what a social worker does really well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, please proceed.
Okay, rolling into special education. So we are always looking to expand our programming within reason. We have more ideas than we can afford every single year. But the most recent program that we are really excited to have implemented is the Pathways program. We have 2 cohorts at our elementary level and now 2 at our middle school, 1 at each Scotts Ridge and East Ridge, and 1 at Veterans Park and 1 at Ridgeberry. So we're going to really have it's huge priority for me personally, but also for our department to continue to make sure that that program reaches success and also achieves its goals. We are going to continue to collaborate with Corey and her office to support our high school counseling department. That has been an ongoing focus for our department, and I think we're seeing benefits of that. I attended the high school open house last week, and the senior seminar on preparing for college was extremely robust in terms of attendance, but also in the quality of the information. And Mr. Collin, you'll be happy to know that they included in that information for parents on how to navigate the process if they're choosing other than traditional 4-year college. So wanting to make sure that parents know that regardless of what the student's path is, that there's a place for robust counseling for them at the high school. There's a lot of work to do still in transition from 8 to 9. And also, I think a lot of enhancing communication strategies. If you're a high school parent and here or otherwise, my hope is that you've already started to see a little bit different communication from the high school in terms of the counseling department already this school year, because that's been a huge focus for us. At times in the past, there has been question about why don't we do this at the high school counseling department? And we've all looked around at each other and said, but we do. And so the question becomes, how can we make sure that students and parents know that that's available to them? We are, we've been in front of this board in the last school year looking at not necessarily a lot of changes in our outplacement, but a lot of changes in our private contracted services, and a lot of that has to do with staff retention. We had a significant challenge with psychologists in the past few years, which is partly also the benefit of moving to the social worker model at the elementary. But we have a priority around what we're calling strengthening our special services faculty retention and departmental longevity. The retention of all teachers, but most specifically those who we invest in, number one, to learn high quality practices for meeting students with disabilities, but also for the families. Special services staff are very rarely with a student for 1 year. Sometimes at the secondary level you might be, but families can often work with these people for 2, 3, 4 years, and it's really important that there's that type of longevity. And so hoping to have a lot of mentorship from Karen in terms of this priority as well. Karen, you didn't know that, but now you know that. And then the last two pieces of my priority is around studying our service provision models related to paraeducators. Paraeducators are so critically important, and they can run away with themselves in terms of our need and use. And so we want to make sure that students are getting the right type of service model as it relates to paraeducators. We have not studied it formally before, so we're going to do that. And then last piece, Susie mentioned before, collaborating with the facilities department to plan for the evolution of our building space and our programming models at the same time. We have realities that our programs have to fit the space, but we really would love for it to be the reverse. For us to have programs and space not necessarily limit them. We know that that's not the real world, but at the same time, preschool being a perfect example of us trying to kind of fit ourselves into a box at the moment when we know that population is going to continue to grow. So we're looking at collaborating and being creative with the facilities department to look at, I would say, at least a 5-year plan.
Any questions for Dr. Hanaway about special services? I had one. I was just curious. There's been a lot of activity in Hartford over the last session around various grants that might become available to districts.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Are we doing any thinking or planning on how we might be able to qualify for those?
We automatically are. We learned today there was part of the updated legislation put $30 million into a grant called SEED, which is the Special Education something development, expansion and development. Thank you, which was not an awards-based grant. We got $7,400. Which is great. I'm going to use it for something to expand probably our Pathways program and the use of programmatic materials, and that's the purpose of the grant, but obviously not enough. So they have not released any other information about competitive grants yet.
The spirit of what that grant, I think, was intended and probably is going to serve for other communities is quite different. And in fact, programs such as the Pathways, or even expanding the alternative high school, for example, might have been an option, but unfortunately the funding just isn't there.
And just to confirm, I know there were some, I think they're called like high quality incentive grants, potentially related to in-district services?
Yes. I mean, once we know information about when we can apply and when those are due, we're absolutely going to apply.
But there's no, I guess my question is more, there's nothing that we should frame within the confines of our priorities to try to prepare or align with those sorts of opportunities, correct?
I'd have to think about that more, not off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Okay, so personnel. Go ahead, Karen.
Sure. So my first two priorities also involve, as Liz talked about with the mental health, the athletic department, and kind of encapsulating it into what we do for all of our staff. So we're very proud of our robust hiring practices for our educators. So the first priority and action step would be really looking at our district hiring manual and ensuring that we have the same comprehensive process for hiring our coaches. And then our evaluation system. We've been here many times in front of the board to talk about our evaluation process for our educators. So looking at our evaluation process for our coaches and building that into our online system Talent Ed that we have for all staff to ensure efficiency and timeliness of the evaluation process for our coaches. And then working with the athletics department, Ridgefield High School, and the business department. So as my role as Title IX coordinator, how I work with all of them to support the athletic department's endeavor in their review of the booster clubs. And then as we continue to expand our data collection to ensure that we continuously improve our practices to support staff culture and retention, we do currently do exit surveys and to expand exit interviews as well as retention interviews. Why do people stay? And then really looking about how we analyze that data and develop a system to improve our practices based upon that. And then always, as part of our district of choice and our support for our staff, continuously providing our resources for mental health and wellness support to all educators.
Thank you. Any questions for Karen? Yep.
I just have a comment. Regarding the exit interviews, is there any way that the board might be able to obtain some of that information? I just think it would be helpful for us to have that. I know that one letter we received, I think it was the end of last year, was really helpful to read what a teacher thought, and that was the first time that she felt comfortable actually sharing information with the board. So is there a way to maybe put that in some kind of form or something? Are they verbal exit interviews, or do you have them fill something out?
So right now, both. I can't make somebody complete an exit survey. So everyone that leaves has an opportunity and is encouraged to complete an exit survey that is like a Google form. Historically, I've selected exit interviews when I did not know what the reason was for the leave, because if I knew, you moved out of state or you had a baby and you're taking time off, but really starting to increase that. So even if I know the reason, having more of a conversation about your experiences here. So that's the action step number 2, is really looking about how I analyze that and then communicate that and make changes. So that will be part of the work that I'd look at and consult with Dr. DeSilva with, of how we can share that information and what we share.
So I think what you're asking for, someone may have asked for that. I think it may have been you, Mr. Paradiso, at one of our last meetings, is really around like the trends, right? So are people leaving the field? Are people leaving to retire? Are they leaving because financially? Are they leaving? What are those trends that we're seeing when we collect that feedback? And we could absolutely do that and share that, because it's anonymous. We're not going to add names, and we're just showing the board ultimately
I'm also
what the trends
interested
are.
in them and how because they feel more comfortable, I think, being honest when they're leaving. Like, what are their feelings? Do they feel like they have enough autonomy? Like, and what's their experience been in the classroom? I just felt like that was so helpful, seeing that in, that experience. And we hadn't really heard that, until then. I think most of us would agree it was a really helpful letter. And so I think it's more than just the trends, though, because we have a responsibility to, make sure that our teachers are happy too here. And our students do better if our teachers are happy. So, I just would like to, I think we'd all be interested in knowing what their experience is here.
Yeah, can I just second that too? Because I think it's not just the board. I think that would really benefit from that, because I think we hear a lot of times from parents like, oh, we have so many new teachers. Is that a bad sign? And I don't think it is always a bad sign, right? Because I think there's natural attrition that occurs in the profession. But if we can present some kind of anonymized data that would allow the community to feel a little bit more self-assured, that we don't have the tremendous brain drain going on, I think that's what we want to know.
Right, and there's typically, you'll see over any district, you'll see that over time, there'll be a school that all of a sudden will lose 7 teachers and not lose another teacher for 15 years, right? And then because they have newer teachers, let's just say, or whatever's happening, and then all of a sudden you'll see another school that loses no teachers, and all of a sudden it's a huge jump. So you'll see those patterns for sure, but we'll find a way to collect the information and share it with you.
Awesome.
We'll figure out when that is the most appropriate time.
Don't want it to be
Sure.
more work.
No, and I just wanted to thank you, Selena, for that, because that was my note here as well. I'd love to hear more about it as well, and I agree that one particular letter to which you are referring was very powerful. Thank you. I look forward to that.
All right, and so the last priority isn't anything that the board hasn't heard about before. In fact, I spoke about one part of it tonight. We have really 3 structures in which support our schools. We have Parks and Rec, Town, And when I'm talking about town, I mean, not necessarily budget, but the town, well, the budget also, but the town, and then, of course, the Board of Ed, and really developing a clear communication structure to be assured that, of course, the Board of Education's needs are being met. In particular, where we have those shared responsibilities, i.e. roofs, playgrounds, new buildings. The second priority is really about that student agency and the student voice. We heard a little bit about that tonight connected to athletics, but it's really bigger and broader than that. Well, we know in particular at the high school level and that age that the student voice, in order to make impact with one another and their peers, and certainly in a global way, is incredibly important and valuable. We want to make sure that kids have that opportunity, and then also have the opportunity to share and highlight their experiences, the good, the bad, and perhaps some that we don't want to hear, and identify what those needs are. And I know that we've worked hard over the past 5.5 years in collecting that information, but growing it even further. And really using the students as a resource to us in that co-creation of communication. And whether that's through Thrive Together or other opportunities that we have, along with Ms. Pratt, who's here in the audience, to really get our student voice out there, because they're the ones that are going to have the greatest influence, in particular with the peer group that we're looking to target, especially around the mental health challenges that we're seeing at the secondary level, that all communities are seeing. And expanding those opportunities for accessible leadership, whether that's with central office in our families, whether that's at the school-based opportunities, but growing those experiences. From a school-based perspective, it is challenging for families to come out, whether that's in the evening or during the day. Not unlike our students, their lives are busy. So how can we find ways to access them and have that two-way conversation, and or offer them opportunities to learn and grow in whatever is topic that they're thriving they're expecting to know more about, to support their students in the K-12 experience. So that's really what this priority is. And we work very hard in terms of our communication, and we look at multimodalities, whether it's through the social media venue, whether it's through our RPS News, through its podcast, Board of Ed meetings, committee meetings, our website. It's never enough. We're always looking to get better. And what we've learned over time is as much repetition as we can offer, because we sometimes can expect, well, we sent it out in our newsletter. They did, but the newsletter's long, or perhaps they didn't catch it on that Friday, and because it wasn't repeated somewhere else, they may have missed it. So we're all busy. We want to be sure that our parents in our community can see the communication that's happening across many settings. So we're just going to work hard to repeat.
Any questions? No? All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our section on district priorities, and it also brings us to the end of our discussion and possible action items. So we will move now to correspondence to the board. Now we will have the second public comment session of the evening. We don't have a sign-up list for this, so if anybody would like to make a public comment at this time, please approach the microphone, state your name and street address.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Stavros Natsopoulos, 17 Millview Terrace. You may recognize the name. I've sent emails about a job, school safety to the board before. I've had some discussions with our grade super, Dr. De Silva. I've heard a lot of the great priorities for the year. I would just urge the board to place this one maybe at the top of the list. It's a very important issue. I mean, I think I speak for most parents. We appreciate what you've done so far, but I think there is, one more measure likely. That's on deterrence. Police officers are great, but they're not always there. They do rotate between schools. If we can afford to hire, 10 more police officers, that's great. If not, then I think the next best move is to really arm the guards. They're ex-police officers, they're trained. So again, strongly urging for that adoption of that measure. I think it's the logical thing to do.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Hi again. Jackie Britt Friedman, 24 Split Level Road. I just want to, first of all, thank all of you. I mean, I'm constantly impressed by the hard work and the dedication and the time that you put into supporting our students and our community at large. And so I'm really looking forward to the next meeting when you talk about what's been put in place and potential plans for the upcoming year and years. I also want to speak to a comment that I heard about students not asking for changes in phone policy. And I just want to also think about how I don't think that it would be reasonable for students to want a change in policy, considering the nature of phones and how they can pull kids in, and how we know that teens' brains are still in development, right? And that their reward centers are very sensitive. And so they're more, they have a harder time resisting stimuli when they're, when they're rewarding. And so I just want, we as adults have a hard enough time resisting those impulses when it comes to using technology. So I don't think that it would be a reasonable expectation that that teens would be wanting this. I was trying to think of an analogy and thinking like if we allowed kids to play video games, which are similarly, I'm not saying that they're the same harms necessarily as social media, for example, that kids are probably more likely using in school, but when they have free time, but also probably video games. But if we allowed students to play video games all day and then we expected them to want to change that and have that prohibited, I wouldn't think that we would expect kids to ask for that. So I'm hoping that's not also what you would expect kids to be asking for. And I think that student voice, as you mentioned, Dr. De Silva, is incredibly important. And I hope that that's something that you solicit and that we hear what kids are thinking and their perspective and their concerns, and that they're addressed and it's a conversation, and that there's a tremendous amount of education, and that ultimate decisions are based on what's best and what's in the best interest of kids. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hi again, Michelle Chris, 9 Longview Drive. I just wanted to say quickly, like when I made my comments before, I hope it didn't come off that I was cascading anything at the Department of Special Education around available accommodations that we're using right now in the classroom, because that is not what I am trying to say. I'm trying to say that it's just a continuously expanding field. I'm so excited by the idea that we're continuing to look through emerging tech and emerging tech solutions, and that's definitely part of how we're preparing kids to be informed digital citizens for the future, and that we're providing them with appropriate accommodations that are right in their space right now, and that grow and evolve with them through their educational career. Because what we provide for a kindergartner is obviously going to be very different than what we provide for a 9th grader, and to what we provide a graduating senior who is an 18-year-old fully functioning adult who is allowed to vote, who's allowed to go and buy vapes, but we're going to still tell them in school that they do not have the responsibility or the ability to restrict their phone usage. I just want to encourage that this really still does not need to be 100% or 0%. That there's a lot of ways that we can address this from an appropriate accommodation process. We can have a phone-free table in the cafeteria. There are times that kids are over at my house that they say, you know what, Ms. Dow, we don't want to see our phones right now, so they put them all in a phone pile and they put them away. So kids do self-regulate in this space. They grow into that with maturity. And the high school time period is the perfect time for them to be learning about how to use these devices that are going to be part of their life. It is irresponsible to think that we are going to raise them into a society that right now we're saying AI is going to eliminate a huge portion of entry-level jobs. So not preparing them for that future by restricting their access to the things that are driving that future is just not a realistic solution that we can expect to implement K through 12. We can certainly phase this. We can do this in stages. We can be creative. I heard so many creative opportunities and ideas that were presented through the presentation tonight. And I think we're really dialing in on something too around why are high schoolers sad? Right? Why are they struggling? And there is a real answer to that question. And the question to me with this device is this a symptom or is this the cause? And I am not convinced that this is the cause. I think this is a symptom, and we need to look at things like workload. We need to look at things like engagement. There's a great book called The Disengaged Teen, which I encourage you all to read, that is really going to help to answer some of these questions so that we can support our kids, listen to our kids. I love the idea of engaging kids in the solution making. Right? Help us help you. We know what we're doing isn't working. We have heard it loud and clear, but now we can't just throw solutions at the problem when we haven't fully defined the scope of the problem and what the cause of it is. We can come up with a beautiful solution, but if that is not the root cause and we're just throwing acetaminophen at the fever instead of addressing the underlying infection, we are not going to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments?
Kelsey Rollinson, 113 West Lane. I actually wasn't going to make a second comment, but one of the comments that was made earlier by one of the people speaking when she talked about the prom and how the kids the year after that cell phones were removed from bell to bell, or the policy was in bell to bell, how they didn't really even need them anymore as much. They had the opportunity to bring them to prom and to be on them during that time, and they didn't, which I think for so many of us who see kids in town, see kids around, when they have the opportunity to be on phones, they are on so much. So it just sparked a memory of some articles that I was reading that I wanted to share with you. This is from a student who was talking about that fact and how it says that the student paradigm has shifted, with students generally accepting and resolved that cell phones are no longer an option in school. Once they get used to it and the grumbling and everything gets underway, they tend to adapt to the situation. And one girl said, I was initially very worried about my cell phone use having an uptick in it when I was outside of school, but this has kind of taught me that I don't need it all the time and I can just use it for its main purpose. I'm finding I don't need to be scrolling social media all the time, which is really great, he said. They also said that we used to have our cell phones in every aspect of school. That's crazy to think about now. Likewise, her cell phone use has diminished outside of school. While previously she may have logged up to 2 hours on her phone just during the school day, now she's finding personal value and spending so much less time on it. So I think it just reminded me, and this is another example, and I just really urge the board to seek out, and of course we all here will help in any way, just these examples of how many school districts have taken this change, restricted cell phone use outside of classrooms with the social settings. It's so important at this age and stage in their life when their prefrontal cortexes aren't fully developed to help them really look at each other during lunch. Heads up is what one principal said. We have to teach them to look each other in the eye when they have conversations. Are you going to walk up to a girl and ask her out, or are you just going to text? Are you going to make plans after school just through texting? Or are you actually going to go up and have conversations with people? And I do agree with some of the comments that were just made. We do have to make allowances for kids that maybe aren't as social or use these as crutches during times when kids are together and communicating and they feel maybe more left out. And I think that's where Thrive Together can be such a great program, where if we do take the cell phones out of lunch, out of the hallways, out of the free periods, and we see a kid who is alone and not knowing how to really associate, then that can be noticed and taken care of. Because as one of the other presenters said, it is sort of, we don't want kids to be alone in a room where they feel they don't have a way to associate with other kids. And the things that, again, I'm not getting into some of the security issues we have with kids that just really struggle for mental health and hide behind these. I think there's so many kids that are hiding behind the devices. And so anyway, this just sparked some resonance. I hope we all look into that. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. Are there any other public comments? Thank you very much for everyone who made one this evening. All right, we will move now to the correspondence report. Since our last meeting, which was back in June, we have received 19 emails on district operations. We have received 47 emails on board operations and policies, and we have received 5 emails from vendors soliciting business. All right. There being no further business before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Ms. Moore, thank you. So Mr. McAvoy motioned, Ms. Moore seconded. All those in favor? Selena? All those in favor to adjourn? Okay, unanimous of the 6 members present. The motion carries. This meeting of the Ridgefield Board of Education is adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening, everybody.